We are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the September 1st meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilman Lees.
Present.
Councilwoman Overby.
Here.
Councilman Bragman.
Here.
Supervisor Van Scoyac.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
Republic, and one nation,
indivisible,
This morning, we'll begin with the public portion where any member of the public may address the town board on any topic. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We'll have the following topics for discussion: Southampton Hospital Satellite ER, and that'll be presented by planning staff Eric Chance, along with hospital representatives, followed by communications campaign update from Kathy Burke Gonzalez and Councilwoman Sylvia Overby, and finally the Amagansett Municipal Parking Lot time restraints. Talking about changing up the potential parking regulations in that lot as part of the new construction. Before we get started, though, I want to get just a really brief update on COVID. The governor's announced that hospitalizations and ICU patients have dropped to the lowest level since mid-March. There was only one COVID death in New York State yesterday, no deaths reported in NYC. For 24 straight days now, the infection rate of those tests given has been less than 1% positive. So we continue to move forward at a low infection rate. Again, it's still important to not let our guard down and remain vigilant. There have been a couple of new cases reported within the township in the last several days, but we still have a very low rate of infection. I think in total, since pandemic started, East Hampton has reported 234 total cases. And that's with all of our summer visitors and those who have decamped from New York City and elsewhere to ride out the pandemic here. So again, I just remind everybody to please respect everyone else and wear masks when you're out about in public. Continue to practice good hygiene and disinfect commonly used surfaces as we move forward. Do we have any callers on the line, Michael?
Yes, we do. We have 2 callers on the line. I can unmute the first caller right
call,
now.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Long-time listener, first-time caller. My name is Michael Hampton. I live in Wainscott. Can you share with me good morning. Can you share with me an update on the proposal to build a roundabout at Long Lane and Stephen Hand's Path? It is a dangerous intersection during the height of the season and in the off season. It is not scenic by any means, that it is at a lower elevation than the surrounding area. And a roundabout simply would make it a safer space for vehicles to turn. My wife works on Long Lane and navigates this intersection every day. It is unsafe, and I'd like it to be safer. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. We had some initial engineering plans drawn up, and we'd had a previous discussion about a potential for a roundabout in this location. Currently, we do have plans to improve the drainage along that stretch. That's an area that floods because of the farm fields and all the runoff. In recent years, that roadway has flooded and have been closed numerous times. I think within the last 12 months, it's been closed, I think, 8 or 10 times. So that drainage proposal is moving forward. You may have seen some equipment there in preparation for some of that work, I believe, to begin. But the board has discussed the possibility of having a roundabout at that location. It's a really heavily trafficked intersection with not a really good line of sight. So I do think that's something we'll continue to consider moving forward. And thank you for calling in.
Have a good morning.
Michael, do we have any other callers on the line?
Yes, we have two more. I'll be unmuting the next caller right now.
Hello.
Thank you.
This is Jane Rifkin. I'm a resident of East Hampton. I'm also a member of the Peconic Climate Reality Chapter, and I'm calling about the Win with Wind beach access activity. I'm a proponent of bringing in the power from the windmills on Beach Lane, and I'm thinking that, especially since COVID has brought so many more people out here, the urgency of getting more power to our citizens in East Hampton is of the utmost. And I was just wondering what the timing is on approving or giving permission for Beach Lane to be the access point.
Thanks for calling, Jane. So the town board has been in negotiations with Deepwater Orsted for, I think, almost 2 years now over both host community benefits as well as easements. And I know those conversations have also included the trustees over the portion of land that they control, the beach itself. And I think we're actually very, very close to reaching an agreement. I expect we could have public discussion on both of those documents as early as next Tuesday. But again, we're just making sure that we are covering all our bases and that all of our concerns on behalf of the people of East Hampton will be covered and represented in those agreements. So I appreciate you calling.
Great.
I appreciate your support.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other callers on the line, Michael?
Yes, we do. I'll be unmuting the next caller right now.
Good morning, Peter. This is David Buddha.
Morning, David. How are you?
My comments and questions, I'm fine, thank you. As according to your report, so is most of East Hampton, which is great news. We remain marginally minimally affected by COVID, which is great. My comments and questions are directed to the entire town board, all 5 of you, since our temporary ersatz martial law has now ended. I really think it's for the entire board to address the question of when and how and to what extent town offices will resume normal business operations, or at least near normal business operations. What I'm looking for, since my calendar tells me it's now September, and I'm hoping certainly that by Labor Day we can return to a sense of normalcy, and that any citizen who has business with a town office should be able, at a minimum, to make an appointment to come in 1 or 2 at a time with a mask and interact with town files and town personnel, whether it be the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Planning Board, the Building Department, or the Assessor's Office. And I'd like to know why, if that's not on the horizon by Labor Day, day after Labor Day, why the town board feels it's not ready yet to do so.
Well, David, I think in terms of returning to normal operations, I wouldn't expect that to happen right away. We've had to adapt so many things to address the pandemic. Schools are reopening, but they're certainly not going to be operating as they normally would. And I really don't expect the town will be operating as we did in the past. We'll have to adhere to, reduced numbers of people and distancing and other procedures. I'm not aware of very much business that can't take place as we have been operating to date. I did mention that we are likely to this month to start looking at having some public meetings in sort of a hybrid format where we may allow a certain number of members of the public to attend meetings live. Again, not everybody's comfortable doing that, so we're going to have this hybrid sort of format where people like yourself right now calling in can address the board on concerns. And again, also board members may or may not attend the public meeting. They may come in on Zoom. I'm going to leave that to the discretion of board members as well as the public as to whether or not they are comfortable attending in public. And I think, hopefully we will be opening on a somewhat limited basis soon. I did mention the last time we talked about this that I'd like to see that happen this month, but we are kind of playing things by ear. We have all of our schools are now coming back in this session, which means that there will be a much greater potential for spread as you have more and more people in more and more activities. And I think that rather than trying to restart everything all at once, that we step into this carefully. And again, I'm not aware of any business that can't be conducted right now the way we've been operating.
Here, if I can just add, David, if I could just add to that also, my personal preference is Peter mentioned that schools are about to open up in a matter of about 2 weeks. I said this in the past, if it's 2 weeks past school opening up to see if, the numbers and the matrix, if they don't move, increase to the numbers past that 5% threshold or even less than that. Right now, we're still hovering around the 1 or lower. I am preparing my leads on departments' plans to open up, but that decision I personally don't believe shouldn't be made until maybe October 1st right now. And that's my opinion. And it comes solely because of the unknown of schools opening up, some 5 days, some 2 days, giving it 2 weeks to see what the inoculation rates are going to be, and then see what the numbers are. And we'll follow the numbers, we'll follow the science, but I would like to prepare for it, but I wouldn't like to personally make that decision until the 1st of October. I understand that it's not what everyone wants to hear, but I think it's about one of the safest ways that we can go forward here as this next large hurdle and challenge for so many in the population, the families go forward. That's my opinion.
Anyone else want to chime in?
So David, I appreciate you taking the time to call in, and I know we certainly would have to get back to normal and to operate as we did in the past, but I think for the foreseeable future, we won't be operating as we did in the past.
Let me just seek a clarification of what you said, Peter. Should I understand that if I need to review a planning board or a zoning board of appeal or ARB file, that I can make an appointment and examine it in person if I come to the office wearing a mask?
We hope to get to that point at some point. I'm not sure.
So the answer is no. So the answer is no. The answer is no. Why no? I would like the 5 of you to tell me why you're not at that point now.
There's this thing called a global pandemic, David, and we've been doing our best.
I think I've heard of it, Peter. Don't be sarcastic.
All right. Well, I don't think that's sarcastic. I think that's just the fact, and we're going to take prudent steps to keep both the general public and our own employees safe. And I don't know that there's particular business that can't be conducted without in-person visits. So. If there's something in particular you're looking for, we have this technology. We can scan documents. Most of the documents that come into planning department, zoning board, whatever, are scanned in, and they can be sent electronically. I don't know that there's an in-person visit necessary to conduct business.
Well, you may not realize it, but some departments have greater difficulty scanning and transmitting documents than others. And certainly if one wants to review existing files or past files, one needs to look at a folder of documents, and that can be done without endangering anyone else that works for the town or anyone else that uses the town office building, offices. Your business is going on. Planning and development activities are going on before all of the reviewing boards, and yet no one can fully participate in a meaningful way without full and complete access to files and documents. That's my point.
Are you saying that you don't have access to particular documents that you need to see?
Correct. So I'm going to send out some email requests to look at certain files and documents, and we'll see how various departments respond.
Okay. Well, please let me know.
Be happy to.
Thank you.
Have
Michael,
a great
do we have
day. Stay well.
You too, David. Michael, do you have any other callers on the line?
No, we do not at this time.
Okay. At this point, I'd like to get started with our first agenda topic, which is the Southampton Hospital Satellite ER. As you all know, we've had discussions about trying to locate emergency satellite ER here in town for, I think, going on 3+ years. For 2 years now, we've had a lease with Southampton Hospital of the Pianago Ballfield site. Those plans have now moved forward to the point where we are ready to make the necessary steps, including a zone change of that property, as well as moving forward on review of the actual plans, doing a secret declaration, and taking it to the next step. So today we have Eric Shantz with the Planning Department here, as well as Liz Vale, who's representing the hospital, and David Larson, who's the architect of the project. So I will hand it off to you, Eric. You want to give us just a brief intro?
Sure. I mean, really, I think the majority of the first part of this discussion should be the applicants, the representatives of the hospital, giving an overview of the project. Keep in mind the planning board, as you mentioned, with SECRA has declared lead agency. This is a review of the entirety of the project, not just the zone change request, which the town board has sole purview over, but also the site planning elements, which the planning board has reviewed. They've had an initial review, as has the architectural review board. The planning board, well, I'd like to give you a little bit of history of this. So the town board discussed this in August of last year, that being the zone change and whether or not they were amenable to it at all. The majority of the board was in favor of the zone change request. They're requesting to go to CI, which they were zoned from the adoption of zoning in '53 until being zoned PC Parks and Conservation after the baseball fields were built. That was a recommendation of the comprehensive plan to make the zoning more match the existing use and the intended future use at that time, which was the ball fields, active recreational use. The town board has agreed by resolution to lease the property of Stony Brook, Southampton for this project, with certain conditions, of course. And the planning board last year, when it just gave comments on the zone change, gave favorable comments to the town board saying that they also were in agreement with the requested zone change. We brought that up at the recent review, which was August 5th, and the planning board has not changed their opinion on that. So again, the lease of the property to Southampton, Stony Brook, Southampton, was contingent upon relocating the baseball fields. An exact location has not been chosen. We've discussed the location near Stephen Hand's Path. That's not set in stone. There's nothing that's been agreed upon, but part of the agreement is that the hospital pay the cost of relocating those baseball fields, building 2 baseball fields with lighting, and all the appurtenances that you would expect with a Little League field. And I would just add also that if the town board is to grant the zone change, this property is not only currently zoned PC, but it also has an affordable housing overlay. It's about 4.5 acres, just so that we don't see a reduction in the amount of area within the town. You know, we don't want to see a reduction within the town of areas that are devoted to active recreational use in the form of the baseball fields, and we've handled that as part of the lease agreement. I would also encourage the board to consider having a condition, if not expressly written in any resolution that the board has, but just an agreement that 4.5 acres of affordable housing overlay that would now be removed be reassigned to properties, either be one large property of 4.5 acres, more likely multiple smaller properties throughout the town, so that we don't lose, so that we don't have a net reduction in areas devoted to affordable housing, at least as far as that overlay designation goes, because that goes great lengths to enabling affordable housing projects. So we would recommend that as an additional condition if you are going to ultimately grant the zone change. So basically, the planning board and the ARB have reviewed this. The ARB reviewed it on August 13th. Their comments were almost completely positive. Again, they're focusing more on the aesthetics and the visual aspects. Again, this site is set back quite a distance from Montauk Highway, so it's not immediately visible from the roadway. However, as you will see, I'm sure Mr. Larson will show you the architectural plans. The ARB was very much in favor with that. Let me actually just share screen here and show you, hopefully, just the aerial, just to show you where the property is. I think most of us know in this conference, but just by way of the public, right in the center of the screen is Panago Place. Just to the left of that, right here, I think you can see my cursor, is Town Hall, partially shaded by the yellow there. That's the village boundary. But Town Hall is this large complex here, and then you can see clearly the baseball fields to the right here along the train tracks, and that is the subject property. And then this is actually 300 Panago Place, which is town offices, and then 200 Panago Place is to the south and the right of the ball fields. That is the East Hampton Family Medical Center, and Goldberg's and some other stores are here along Panago Road / Montauk Highway. So basically the town board, the planning board, who again has had an initial review. They have not seen this a second time. They saw it on the 5th of August, and most of their comments are, I don't want to say minor, you sort of implying that they're trivial. They're not. They're basic site plan elements and part of the discussion that you have in a site plan review. Questions about just access lane design, wanting to get more information from the fire marshal about whether or not the site's ADA accessible, whether or not a fire truck can turn around. Basic things such as that, details on a generator. They have a diesel generator that they're proposing, an emergency backup generator. More information just about the hours and number of employees and the comings and goings of the routine operation of the facility. Also, we would like to see a bike path along here. We've been encouraging that to be an element of numerous subdivisions and site plans along this stretch, and that bike path would run along the northern end of the property, along the train tracks. The applicants are working on that. They're going to incorporate that into the plan. And also lighting and landscaping. So basically, most of the planning board's comments were elements that can be resolved, that can be cleaned up during the site plan review process. There really are two major issues in this application. The first, I suppose, being archaeology. I believe I'm still sharing screen here, and I'm now going to pan to the east and leave the baseball fields on the left-hand side of the screen for you to see. Just to the right or east of the baseball fields, as you look at this aerial, you'll see the property that is the water authority, and I believe you can make out the tower, the water tower there. It's that big white circle with the big shadow. I believe it's 175 feet. I forget the exact height, but it's roughly that. But just to the east of that residential neighborhood that you see between roughly between Spring Close Highway and Maple Lane, was historically the site of a Montaukett burial ground from the 1660s. There was a smallpox epidemic outbreak that was very costly to that community, and that was used as a burial ground. It was excavated in 1917, and all of the bodies that were found, or the remnants of bodies, were removed from the site as far as we know. Other artifacts were also found, such as pottery, fire pits, things of that sort. So it's a very important archaeological site. Based upon the 1917 excavation and then 1918 report, they believe that they exhumed all of the remains that were there and found any artifacts that could be found. However, that location is roughly, well, let me not tell you something incorrect. Yeah, it's about 600 feet away from the property, the subject property. There was, when the subject property was subdivided, and that included the 300 Panago Place, the town offices, as well as other offices, 200 Panago Place Medical Center, and the property that has Goldberg's on it now. There was an archaeological study done. They did not do a large amount of test pits. In fact, test pits being digging down to see if they could actually find artifacts. They, in fact, only did 4. However, the study did recommend further investigation. There was no investigation done when the ball fields were built. There was none done when 300 Panago Place was built. There was none done when 200 Panago Place was built. So that didn't happen for those projects. However, that archaeological study did say, although they did recommend further investigation, they did say there's very little chance that the burial sites extend this far to the west onto this property. So regardless of that, the planning department recommended that further archaeological investigation be conducted. The planning board agreed with that. The applicants have taken proactive steps on that. New York State SHPO was contacted, and they recommended a protocol that included 6 100-foot long trenches be dug, removing the topsoil to see whether or not there's evidence of any disturbance. That's 6 that were basically, if you look at the baseball fields on the aerial there, done parallel to the property line with the water authority. 3 on the eastern baseball field, and then 3 on the western baseball field, basically in the outfield portion of those fields. Again, 100 feet long and 3 feet wide. The applicants actually, or their archaeological team was out there yesterday. I saw them beginning in the morning. They concluded in the evening. The process was, again, that they were going to pull back the topsoil, have their team look and see if they see evidence of disturbance, evidence of any artifacts. Again, that being the specific protocol recommended by New York State. It's my understanding that that was performed, and then I do see that they did recover those trenches that they dug, which to me indicates that they did not find anything. If they had, they would be doing further digging. So I don't know that for sure, because obviously this being done just yesterday, we do not have the official report from Alfred Camisa, who is the archaeologist who is doing that study. But I do believe, I'm pretty confident that that issue has been resolved in the sense that they did do the mandated protocol for an archaeological investigation and did not find any artifacts. Again, that is not for sure, but we do believe that to be the case. The second and really final major issue that the planning board discussed and that the town board should discuss is the issue of generated traffic from this facility. Obviously, right now you have a Little League field that you can see the parking lot there. It does fill up when there are games, but usually those games are after business hours during the summer. So it does generate a decent amount of traffic, but really not the regular traffic that the hospital facility, which is really, the applicants can get into the cause and the function of the facility, but it's meant to be a freestanding emergency facility, not a hospital with overnight beds, not a hospital where people are going for sort of routine doctor's appointments or anything like that. It's meant to be an emergency facility with emergency services. It is only keeping people as needed to stabilize them, and then potentially, hopefully, either send them home or transfer them to greater facilities with greater care abilities, mainly Southampton Hospital. So the traffic. There was a traffic report prepared in 2016 when actually we were still in the process of finding an appropriate location for this facility. But obviously this property was considered. We have requested that those figures be updated. Basically, the main thing that's going to alter those figures is the fact that at the time, the applicants had proposed a facility of roughly, I think, 33,000 square feet, and they've now reduced that to 23,000 square feet, so somewhere around there. I can give you the exact number, but it's roughly in that ballpark. They reduced it by roughly like a quarter to a third in size. So they've seen the facility is smaller by a good margin, and the generated traffic that the traffic engineers use is based off of a standard engineering manual. And the calculation for the amount of traffic you'd expect from that facility is based on square footage. So that being said, now that they've reduced the size of the facility, the calculation for the generated traffic would be reduced. However, they were also using numbers from 2016 and extrapolating that out based on traffic increases to 2018. Obviously, that's the past now. So we'd like just to see those figures updated. I do actually anticipate, based upon what I was saying about the square footage being reduced, that they're probably going to come up with numbers that indicate less of a traffic impact, although probably not by that great of a margin. But that being said, we are still waiting for that information to be updated on traffic. However, the bottom line, if you do look at the figures that they have, is that they do, the facility will have an impact on traffic at the intersection of Panago Place and Panago Road / Montauk Highway. The real significant change is on the turning movements off of Panago Place. The change of the turning movements and through traffic on Montauk Highway is relatively negligible. For example, the amount of time it would take to make a left-hand turn from Montauk Highway onto Panago Place, they estimate under current situations is in the AM 9.8 second delay and in PM 9.7 second delay. And then that would be changed to 10.2 and 10.1 respectively. So that's a very minor change. The impact of the turning movements off of Montauk Highway. The major delay would be the traffic basically piling up on Panago Place and waiting to make a turning movement onto Montauk Highway. Anyone who's been turning off of Panago Place onto Montauk Highway under current conditions during the summer knows that especially during rush hour and in the evening, the traffic backs up in a line in that location. So the obvious fact is that if you have more cars trying to turn off of Panago Place from not only the office complex, the existing medical complex, but now the emergency room, you're going to exacerbate the delays in turning movements off of that road. So, so two things have been recommended. The traffic study that was submitted specifically recommended that a traffic light be installed at that intersection. They did provide numbers for that, and they indicate that that would provide significant mitigation as far as the turning delays. It has also been discussed both as part of the Hamlet study, and then I believe that McLean, who are our traffic engineers who worked on the traffic study, that they have discussed the possibility of even doing a turnaround in this area, excuse me, not a turnaround, a roundabout, a circle at the intersection of Panago Place and Panago Road. Obviously, this is a state highway. Any changes to the traffic circulation pattern would need to be approved by the DOT. But again, that is the circle is something that has conceptually been thrown around, but a traffic light was specifically recommended by the traffic study. So just to reiterate, I think those are the major issues with this project, or maybe were, at least the first one, that being archaeology. We will, again, wait for the official report from the archaeologist, but it does seem that that is an issue that may be moved at this point. But the other really, I guess, major issue then is the traffic. Again, the the town board as lead agency will need to ultimately find that the proposed project does not present a potential for significant adverse impacts. That is probably an aspect of this project that you want to have a significant discussion about. I do see it as probably the major issue of the application. I don't know that it's something that can't be mitigated. Again, the traffic engineers recommend a light, which could substantially improve the existing conditions as well as the conditions under the build scenario, as they call it, where we would have the emergency facility. Again, when the traffic engineers do these studies, they are doing estimates based on an engineering manual. The use that they used is not an exact fit. This is a very unique kind of facility, as I'm sure the applicant's representatives will tell you. It is more of an emergency facility. There's going to be, they provided 14 parking spaces for employees. They're not expecting more than that at one time. They're not expecting a lot of people to be visiting this as a destination for checkups and things like that. Again, it's mostly an emergency facility. So I think that nature of use probably also means that the traffic study estimates are a little higher than what reality may be, but that's an assumption based upon the nature of use that the applicants have laid out. So I believe that this is also on the town board's upcoming agenda, possibly for Thursday, or I do believe the town board has a work session again next Tuesday, the 7th, at which time it would behoove the board to make a secret declaration. I am preparing an EAF part 2 and 3. Obviously, it's not complete. I need to hear the board's deliberation here today in order to complete that. But I can have that ready for the board whenever they need it. But this today, I will finish now and let the applicants give their presentation. But this today is really the first time that the town board is seeing this project on a whole. Again, you have discussed the zone change, and it did seem that the board, with its current makeup, current members, last year, the majority was favorable of zone change to commercial industrial CI zoning, which, again, if I didn't mention it before, is the zoning of 300 Panago Place, the office buildings, town office buildings, and 200 Panago Place, the medical center, and was the zoning of the subject parcel until 2005. So you have discussed the zone change in the past, but you have not seen the full project and the site plans. They're proposing, obviously comprehensive site improvements, landscaping, lighting, drainage, a new low nitrogen sanitary system, a new parking configuration, a new building, obviously. One aspect of this project, which is not included in the current site plan application, is that they do ultimately want to have a helipad in the immediate vicinity for that type of emergency care. Currently, they have a concept of having it on the town hall property. I will pan over, putting the baseball fields and the subject parcel in the middle of your screen, roughly. And so you can see again, right to the left is town hall. And if you go all the way to the left or western end of the town hall property, you'll see an open lawn area along the property line. And they have, at least conceptually, proposed that to be an area for a helipad with a road connecting through the town hall campus over to the new emergency medical facility. Again, I believe that is something that they are looking forward to or looking to do in the future. It's not necessary. It's not part of the subject application right now. Obviously, it's not on the property that they're applying for. But that is also a point of discussion as to the feasibility of that and whether or not that can continue in the future. But with that, I will let the applicants give you the full presentation of their proposed project.
Thank you, Eric. Liz, do you want to?
Yes. Thank you, board members. Liz Vale, Farrell Fritz, 50 Station Road, Watermill. I'm here on behalf of Southampton Hospital Association as it relates to the zone change application before you for the proposed emergency room at 400 Pantago Place. The proposed application is before the town board for a zone change pursuant to Town Code Section 255-930 and New York State Town Law Section 265. And the application, as Eric stated, is to change the designation of zoning from parks and conservation to commercial industrial. And the town board assumed lead agency for seeker purposes at its meeting on July 21st, 2020. In 2016, the town board identified 400 Pantago Place as the preferred location for this proposed ER. And in 2018, the town of East Hampton leased the subject property to the hospital for the proposed emergency room use. The proposed site plan special permit application will be for a semi-public facility in the CI zoning district. And the proposed structure meets all of the zoning requirements for the CI zoning district, and we will not require any variances in connection with this application. The subject property, maybe Eric, could you pull up your aerial again, if possible? The subject property is abutting other CI zone properties, including Town Hall and the abutting Town Hall professional offices at 300 Pantago Place. They're also abutting neighborhood business zoning designations. The property abuts the County Water Authority property and is near the Hampton Healthcare Center at 200 Pantago Place, which is almost entirely medical offices. The site is already abutting commercial zoning and the uses and is buffered significantly from any neighboring residential properties. The area contains multiple offices and healthcare center, ensuring that the zone change to CI is in keeping with the character of this immediate neighborhood and is appropriate under the law. The nature of this application, as you all know, is intended to address the health, safety, and welfare of the people of the town of East Hampton by providing emergent medical care in a closer location than Southampton Hospital. This is a proposed emergency room that will be run by the State of New York SUNY Stony Brook Hospital. It will be open 24 hours, 7 days a week. It will be a 911 receiving site and is regulated by the New York State Public Health Law, Article 28, hospitals. Just for your reference, New York State Public Health Law Section 2800 under its policy states, hospital and related services, including health-related services of the highest quality, efficiently provided and properly utilized at a reasonable cost, are of vital concern to the public health of this state. The town of East Hampton, in October of 2016 planning study, chose this site as the preferred site for the emergency room, outlined the distance and anticipated travel times between each of the fire departments and this site, as opposed to the travel time it takes to get to Southampton Hospital in the village of Southampton. For example, the travel time for East Hampton Fire Department to the existing Southampton Hospital in Southampton Village is 33 minutes, and it's 13 miles away. Whereas it's 4 minutes to get to 400 Pantago Place, which is approximately 1 mile away. The time for the Montauk Fire Department was 58 minutes to the hospital, since it's 27.8 miles away, and 26 minutes to Pantago Place, which is 14 miles away. There were other examples provided in that planning study for every fire district. It was Springs, including Springs, Amagansett, and even Sag Harbor. With the hospital moving to the former Southampton College site, 5 miles further west, the travel time and distance to the emergency room will only increase, making this application.
Hey, Eric. Eric, your screen share is showing emails.
We could see your emails. Sorry, Eric. With the hospital moving to the former college.
Sorry about that. I thought I was being efficient, but.
5 miles further west, the travel time and distance to the emergency room will only increase, making this application even more vital to meeting the health needs of your community. So we recently met with the planning board and the ARB in August and presented our application, and we're working on addressing the planning issues that the board outlined. To that end, we're currently updating our archaeological study consistent with the recommendations of the New York State Historic and Preservation Office, And we're also updating our traffic study. We expect that these additional submissions should be submitted to the town by next week. I will now turn it over to our architect, David Larson of Perkins Eastman, to review the proposed plans and layout with the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Good morning, David.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having us. I'm going to take you through an executive summary view of the project. The site plan review package is quite large. I think you're all familiar with it, but if we need to pull that up later, we can do that. I'm with Perkins Eastman Architects out of New York City. We've been working on this project, as Peter said, for several years, and we are trying to move into the construction document phase so we can get this thing built within the next year and a half or so. So these projects take quite a lot of time, and we're hoping that we can move through this fairly quickly, get the zoning approved so we can move on with the next steps. With that, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see that, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. This is just an overview cover sheet. You'll see this rendering again, and I'll speak about it a little further. Eric did a good job explaining the access and the position of the building, so I don't think we need to belabor that a particularly large amount. We'll just keep going. We do have a survey that illustrates a few points that are to this presentation. The site is mostly open, but does have a fairly large amount of local flora around the perimeter, which is delineated by these little squiggly lines all the way around the perimeter. And we are trying to keep most of that. I think we've only lost about 6 trees in the replanting of the site. And we plan to keep most of the low ground cover as well. The roundabout at this location is a difficult traffic pattern to negotiate for an ambulance. So we have proposed to straighten that out and make for a cleaner entry to the site. There's a landscape buffer that's 50 feet wide from the northern property boundary that comes down, and we've honored that landscape buffer with the exception of wanting to put some drainage structures underground and the sewage treatment structures as well, all which would be underground and just have manholes coming up for service. And that's the biggest part of this particular survey, what's relevant of the survey. So as we approach the terminus of Pantago Place, you can see the remnants of the traffic circle that was here. And this will help separate the traffic flows a little bit, because right now you'd have 3 coming onto that circle, which could be very confusing for both visitors and ambulances or service vehicles. As we go into the site, we've created a ring road that leads you around the site. It's wide enough for both ambulances and visitor. It's 24 feet wide. As you approach the building, visitors will peel off and go over to the drop-off points for service and then back into the parking lot. And we'll have controlled access at the ring road here to prevent visitors from going the wrong direction at that point, because in an emergency, people don't think right a lot of times. So, and we don't really want cars to go back this way. As we progress around, we have 4 ambulance bays for drop-off, which will be not Southampton's ambulances, but any of the local EMS services will be able to bring patients here. A transformer for the main power feed, and 2 loading berths, which are required. A trash area. The emergency generator is situated as far back on the site, back to the 50-foot landscape buffer. so it's as remote from anybody as possible. And then a parking garage, which is for one ambulance that will be owned by Southampton Hospital, or Southampton Stony Brook Hospital, I should say. The reason for the garage is we need to keep the ambulances warm during the winter and free of ice and snow and ready to go whenever they need to. And that will be used to transport to other facilities after somebody has been stabilized in this facility. As we come around, we have the staff parking lot, which has 14 spaces plus one ADA in case we have a handicapped person. And then you loop back around and can exit the site this way. The road going off to the left is for a proposed possible future helistop. That's still under negotiation with the town. And we will also be securing that roadway if we do that, so that we don't get cross traffic either direction. That would only be used in this case when an ambulance needs to get over to a helistop. The generator, which was the subject of the EAF report, apparently that document got lost in the transmission, but that document has been added to this site plan. And it does indicate it's a sound attenuated enclosure that houses the generator, keeps it safe from the elements and safe from any intrusion by unwanted vandals or whatever. Sound attenuation is designed to meet the zoning ordinance and is 5 dBA beneath the commercial industrial zoning requirement of 70 dBA at the property line. And this is at only 55 feet from the enclosure, so it's actually going to be less when it reaches the property line. As Liz mentioned, we are attempting to meet all zoning requirements, and we believe we have. We're well within the lot coverage requirements and the parking requirements. Parking is a little bit enhanced beyond what the minimum requirement is to allow for sort of the midnight mass crowd when you have an event and you really need more parking, but it's only a small percentage higher than what the zoning ordinance would lead us to be as a requirement. This is our landscaping plan. We're striving to create a nice park-like lot that will actually be quite a lot more lush than the current site. Drawing from the local flora that is proffered by the town of East Hampton as the desirable characteristic of planting. As you can see in this document here, all these trees along the perimeter and this green shaded area are existing, and we are trying to maintain that and not really do much any earthwork except for at this one little spot at the northeast corner. This is your landscape buffer in the back. We did initially show a potential future bike path, which would be something the town would do at a certain point. Being that that is their land, you know, that's something that would be done at their request at some point. We don't know exactly when. There was a comment about maintaining a 20-foot easement for that in the future at, I think it was the planning board meeting. And we've actually gone further than this at this point and indicated that in a separate plan, which we will submit to the town. The sewage treatment tanks are here. They show as solid, but they are actually underground and would be landscaped over. So you would just have small intrusions of some manholes for servicing. And there are some other drainage structures for stormwater. We're planning to keep all of the rainwater on site, which is very important in an area like this. Sheet drainage and then drainage into these control structures, which will then leach out into the subsoil and recharge the aquifer. We do have a small plaza at the southeast corner of the property that we're proposing for visitors to wait for their loved ones while they're being treated or wait for a ride. We have another little plaza for employees to sit and be surrounded by some landscaping when they need to get outside and get some fresh air. The emergency generator around the back here is going to have a lot of planting around it to help obscure that, as well as the parking garage. And we've created a informal sort of play area or picnic setting for, events, team building events that the hospital may wish to have, or just a place for people to get out when they have a lunch break. We've ringed the parking to create somewhat of a room around the parking and obscure that somewhat, but also it's not quite dense enough to prevent the view of the hospital. So you will get glimpses through the deciduous trees that will mostly branch out, above 10 feet or so. The building plan is, as Eric has mentioned and Liz both, is primarily an emergency department. It's color coded to show the different kinds of groupings of spaces in it. And these are mostly required by the Department of Health for the program that Southampton Stony Brook wants to run here. The orange areas are the emergency department itself. We have 10 treatment rooms and a resuscitation room, as well as a triage room, and a modest waiting area at the front based on what we think the population will be for this facility. The green areas are imaging modalities, and those are the X-ray and CT are absolutely required by the Department of Health. MRI is nice to have in an ED, and that is something that the hospital believes is an important thing for the future. That will be a shell space right now. And then there are a few other imaging modalities for bone density, mammography, and ultrasound here. The bluish area is a lab. This is also required for an emergency department, and it will be shared between some of these other diagnostic and testing functions and the ED. Gray areas are utility structures, or utility rooms with electrical and emergency power, and IT rooms. And then the brown areas are storage and other support requirements that are absolutely required by the Department of Health. You enter from the parking lot into the emergency department straight away through the accessible route, and anybody going to the other portion of the building would ambulate down the sidewalk and enter the separate waiting area, which is required also by the Department of Health. It is a semi two-story building. It's got 2 rooms up at the top, which are for vacuum pumps and items that serve the emergency department, and then switchgear for the mechanical equipment, which sits out on a rooftop well that's very similar to the adjacent building on the on Pantago Place. As you enter the as you come off the ring road to drop patients off, this is the view you'll see from the southeast. We're appointing the building with materials that are in keeping with the local flavor. This is a wood-like product, synthetic product, because you can't really use real wood on a hospital, but it will look like oak. And we're using a very simplified palette of this siding material and glass curtain walls and aluminum with a zinc coloring. Very modest color scheme. This is the view from the southwest. In this corner of the building, we've created a rain garden to channel roof water down into the ground, and there'll be a rock garden with some planting in it, and that will also recharge the aquifer. At this end of the building, we also have a small plaza for staff who may want to sit at this end of the building with a small picnic table, some bike parking, and those types of things. This is the view from the northeast, looking back at the ambulance bays, and the loading dock is down beyond, and you get a glimpse of the parking structure, which is also a very modest structure in the back. The emergency generator being tucked behind the parking at that far right corner of this slide. This is a view of from the southeast, a little zoomed in, so you can pick up a little bit of the pedestrian plaza or the visitor plaza that I mentioned. So we'll have some benches and a couple tables and whatnot out there for comfort. And the waiting areas are large glassy storefronts, allowing a lot of view of nature outside and the ability to capitalize on daylighting, as well as we provided a clear story up at the top, which will bring light into the building to also capitalize on daylighting. One of the important things about the way we sited the building was getting it to an axis that faces mostly south, a little bit east of south, and that's pretty much the ideal orientation for solar beam. This is an axon view looking down on the facility. This is where the little plaza is. We've got a little aperture in the roof to allow some trees to be planted there to give some shade, but also some nature. This illustrates the solar panels that we're planning to use on the property, and the clear story again. In the past, this clear story ran the full length of the building, but because of some of the comments we'd heard and the concern over size, we've actually sculpted that building back to trim that back to just where the patient areas are. In the back is the roof well I mentioned, which is where the mechanical equipment will sit, and that is screened by the roof that comes up about 15 feet from the roof well itself. You can see the parking garage back behind. Excuse me, I'm getting a telephone ringing. The emergency generator in the back. And then this would be the road that the hello stop, should that come to fruition. And with that, that's the executive summary I have prepared. If we need to look at some other documents from the overall site plan application package, we can do that. But I'll turn it back over to you for comments and questions.
Thank you, David. The board have any questions for David or Liz?
Just comments. I think that it's a very thorough presentation. Appreciate the solar roof and the orientation of the building so that you can take advantage of solar. I've noticed that, and I know that Eric had mentioned that, you're still coming in for some lighting, outside lighting. So there would be lighting in the parking lot that isn't shown in this particular. Encourage you to look at solar lighting for that parking lot as well when that comes in. And I think the building looks efficient. It's very simple, almost looks a little bit like a potato barn, if I could, maybe. So I can appreciate that. And I think changing the traffic circle that's there, I think is important to make sure that traffic circle isn't confusing. So I'm glad that you eliminated that traffic circle. It also gives you an opportunity to put in some more trees and plantings on your site. So I think all of that is well done. And those are my comments for the moment, and thank you very much for such a thorough presentation.
Any other board members?
Yeah, I have some questions. Eric, if I heard him correctly, said that the planning board is the lead agency.
No, the town board's lead agency.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Correct.
So the question I have is, this has been presented once to the planning board, and this has been presented in its current form once to us today. And Eric was talking about issuing a secret declaration as early as next week. Is that the town board's plan at this point?
Yeah, I think at this point, Jeff, with nearly 4 years of planning going into this site, and the initial plan, as you well know, when we discussed and looked at that plan, it was roughly 33,000 square feet. We did give comments about the size, and the applicants responded to that. This looks to me to be a very thoughtful design. And again, I think one of the really important facts to keep in mind here is that the design and size of this building are driven to a large degree by the state of New York in terms of meeting the requirements of this type of facility. And while I know they've gone to great pains to reduce it, I don't think that the size really could be reduced any further. And Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I think, you have a certain number of boxes that you have to check in order to provide this type of facility and meet those standards. And, I know that in working on this plan for quite some time, that this is really a bare bones in terms of size and what you're required to provide. In addition to that, I think that you've responded very favorably to the other suggestions and the planning criteria that the town looks for in terms of your landscaping plan, incorporating indigenous species into that plan, thoughtful and careful analysis of mass and scale of the building, how it's presented, so that while it's a rather large structure, it tends to blend into the landscape very nicely. You've kept the height as low as you can. The clear story, I think, is really nice. The fact that you've taken suggestions about incorporating both passive and active solar in the plan, rain gardens for drainage. These are all the types of criteria the standards that we hold forward to meet in a good plan. And I think we've been very responsive to that. The property, again, is, we're talking about a zone change here. The neighboring buildings are as large or larger than this proposed building within this subdivision. Those uses are zoned CI. Those neighboring parcels are zoned CI. It abuts a railroad track, which is obviously, transportation and industrial kind of situation, backs up against the railroad track, and then it's bordered to the east by a very large water tower and industrial pumping stations for supply of water to the public. So I think, in terms of the outstanding questions related most recently to archaeological survey, which was done, and I don't have the report in front of me, but from what I understand, there was nothing uncovered. This site is a considerable distance to the west of that historic graveyard that was excavated over on Maple Lane. In addition to that, when those other parcels were developed, I think 70 or 80,000 square feet worth of ground was excavated and disturbed, and nothing was found at that time. So I think, we're really in the final stages of this project, planning and review. I know the funding is falling into place, and certain steps need to be taken, and there's a certain timeline here. This is something that The residents of the town, I think, have widely supported for some time. The fact that we have to wait an hour or more to get to the hospital, traveling from Montauk or elsewhere in town, especially during the summer, is really unacceptable. And the fact that the hospital will be moving even further west really necessitates that we have a centralized emergency satellite location here within the town. So that, I think that is the timeline, Jeff. Again, it's been something that's been worked on for nearly 4 years. And
I'd like to continue with my questioning, Peter. You're giving me quite a long answer to a very short question, and I have some other questions that I think should be considered. First of all, this project is for a 25,000 square foot building. When it will take approximately 2 years to build. When it is built, the site will be 2.35 acres of land will be covered by building, roads, and impervious surfaces. So this is a very major project for the town of East Hampton. And the size of it is significant. As Eric Shantz stated, parking and traffic generation, trip generation are directly related to the size of the building. And the size of the building, I think, is something that should be examined more carefully than in 2 meetings culminating in the issuance of a determination by this board that a project of this size will have no significant adverse environmental impacts. It sounds like, today's documents, I might add, came in this morning at about 9:45. And you're actually talking about signing off on the entire project within a week or so. So I want to raise some questions that I think are important to consider, and they do have to do with the functionality of the building. The fact of the matter is that the thought behind this building and a lot of the talk about this building is that if you are, really having a health problem, this is going to be a, huge salvation to you because you can get treated close to home. But the fact of the matter is, speaking of the way medicine works, that there are probably 3 main areas that require immediate emergency attention. And I'm not talking about urgent care attention, where you can walk in and you've got, a tick bite or, a fever or something like that. But if you're going to have a heart attack, if you're having a heart attack, if you're having a stroke, and if you're involved in major trauma, those are the 3 things that people worry about. Like, how am I going to get to the hospital? And the fact of the matter is that as to those 3 forms of injury and trauma, this building is not capable of administering treatment in any of those circumstances. If you're having a heart issue, the general practice in medicine is that you're going to be taken. They are not going to stop at a facility that is essentially an urgent care facility. They are going to transport you to a facility that has a blood bank, a blood bank, for example, if you're involved in trauma, surgeons, if you're involved in trauma. If you're having a heart attack, they're not going to stop at an urgent care facility. They're going to transport you to either a hospital that has a stent lab, that has heart pumps, that has surgeons. They are going to get you to a place that can handle the full range of what might happen to you if you're having a heart attack. And the same is true for a stroke. They've got to get you to a complete lab that's capable of dealing with it. And that is why this building that's why they're talking about creating a helipad here, which is possibly a good idea, because their older report, which I took a look at last night, indicates quite clearly that they are anticipating patients be medevaced out of this facility if they're facing any of these kinds of major difficulties that cause the anxiety in folks' minds when they talk about not having available hospital care. So this facility is really more in the nature of an urgent care facility. If you are seriously ill, you're getting on a helicopter and you're going to Stony Brook, or you're going to Southampton Hospital, because as we've heard from our emergency services people, there's a golden hour for treatment, and if you're not treated within that golden hour, you may die. And that, I think, raises some issues about the rooms that they have in this facility. And I do recognize that the state regulates a lot of the rooms. And I was looking at the rooms last night, and many of them basically are just simple rooms that could be anywhere, and do not necessitate a 25,000 square foot building. For example, they refer to a bariatric room with cardiac observation. And what that means is that is a room that's required, under state law for very obese people. That's what a bariatric room means. And when they say cardiac observation, they're basically saying no treatment, because they're not going to provide cardiac treatment in this facility. They could do a simple heart monitor, but nobody having a heart attack an ambulance is not going to pull in and have them monitor.
If I could just break in and just ask you a question. Are you saying that they don't need this room under the state requirements?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, well, no. Is there a question there? Because,
I want
you to be able to ask questions of Liz Vale or David Larson.
I have a point that I want to make.
Okay.
Since we are now, this application came into the planning board with a formal site plan application. And now the town board is saying that we're going to conclude the environmental review on this case. That's what the secret review is. Within a week or so, likely issuing a statement that it's not going to cause any adverse impacts. This is
a week from today. A week from today, Jeff.
Okay, a week.
Not like 1 week in total. This has been, again, we've been reviewing this project in various stages and presentations for almost 4 years now. So
no, this project,
I think it's really quite fair to say we're going to make a secret determination in 1 week.
Yeah, you are.
From today. That's our plan.
This new application was only submitted in July, and the planning board has heard it once. And even your planner, excuse me, Peter, I'm a town board member, and I would like to make some.
This is your opportunity to state why you don't think it meets the secret declaration of negative. If you have specific secret concerns, this is your opportunity.
Yes, I'm explaining them, and I'd rather not be interrupted.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to enumerate them, and I'm not sure I have a list yet. Can you enumerate them for us? You think the building's too large? You think there are?
I do think the building is too large. It should be reviewed, looking at its functionality. We are essentially a small town. When you look at what cases they are not going to be handling, the need for a 25,000 square foot building. Excuse me, Peter. I am entitled to speak without interruption.
I just want to have a conversation because I'm trying to understand. Can you tell me what specifically is affected under SECRA by a bariatric monitoring room?
What I'm suggesting is that the overall size of the building is the driver behind the traffic it will generate, the parking it will generate.
Okay.
And
the building is too large, and right?
You're really.
I'm enumerating. The building is too large, and you're worried about traffic.
I don't need you translating what I'm saying. I'd like to be able to make some comments in general about the plan.
Okay, please.
Suggest that the planning board.
Just trying to move the meeting forward and keep it focused on the secret portion, because that's what we're really here to discuss.
These are secret issues. The size of the building is a secret issue. Is it necessary? Are they asking for more than is required to satisfy the purpose of the building? And what I'm suggesting to you is that a large portion of what people believe the building is going to serve is not going on in the building. I might add that under the traffic trip generation standards, Eric Shantz made a comment that, well, this is really not going to be like a hospital. It's going to be, people coming in, on a shorter term basis. It seemed to me, and maybe I'm incorrect, but it seemed to me he was suggesting, if it was a hospital, it would be more impacting. But the fact of the matter is that the hospital trip generation numbers are lower than the trip generations for a building like this, which their own application described as more akin to a medical dental building. That's because they know that most of what's being done here is not the serious emergencies. It's not your heart attacks. It's not your strokes. It's not trauma. These are people that can walk in and ask for help. And so that...
I'm a little confused, Jeff, that I didn't know that you had such good medical training and that you had been an EMT or EMS in your lifetime, because I don't know how I can feel comfortable by you telling me that they're not going to be able to treat within that golden hour, because otherwise I'm already dead going to Southampton Hospital. I think these are questions for you to determine that they cannot treat me is, I think you're fear-mongering here. I'm really upset that you are doing this to the population, saying that they will not be able to treat you if you have a heart attack. They will not be able to treat you if you have a stroke or if you have a broken leg or there's some sort of trauma. That's very upsetting to me, and I think
it's not a broken leg. Look, I'm asking, these are questions.
No, these are not questions.
Yes.
These are things that you are pontificating about. These are not questions.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, Sylvia. I don't think it's pontificating to suggest that modern medicine is such that if you're having a heart attack, you're going to be transported to some place that can handle you fully. You're not coming into an urgent care center, which this is.
So you're saying, Jeff, that if someone has a heart attack in Montauk and they're being transported, they're not going to come to this. They're going to go directly to Southampton in any case. Is that what you're saying?
Why do you know that? Why are you telling me that?
Because I've done some research on it, but we can have it. This is the thing that we should have.
Jeff, I don't understand how this relates to SECRA. So if you can make your case about, I get the bit where you're saying that it's too big and it's going to generate too much traffic. That's your concern under SECRA. Are there any other concerns that you have under SECRA?
Yeah, I mean, they all relate to the functionality of the building. Okay, they all relate.
The building doesn't have anything to do with SECRA.
Of course it does. The size of the building is the driver for the traffic and trip generation.
The building is going to affect the environment.
The size of the building.
The size. I got the size part. What else is there that you're concerned about? Traffic and the size of the building.
Yeah, and their report. We don't even have. You're talking about issuing a negative declaration, which for the folks at home means that we've signed off on all environmental impacts. We don't even have a current traffic study for this building, this 25,000 square foot building. I looked at the traffic study that they submitted some years ago, which absolutely states as a fact that it requires a traffic signal. They said that's the only way to mitigate traffic impacts. The planning board has mentioned creating a traffic circle, and this board is basically going to fly blind on those issues and just issue a declaration saying everything's fine, we've taken a look at it. And it's not fine. This is a large project. It is probably one of the largest we have seen in 5 years or will see in 5 years. It results in 2.5 acres of structure on the property. It will take 2 years to build. What's the hurry? We don't even have a traffic study.
Glaciers move faster at this point with global warming, Jeff. It's been 4+ years, and frankly, we reviewed this project, for traffic. The study was done and updated in 2018 based on traffic changes. And since then, if you were listening to what Eric said, the project has been reduced by almost 30% in size, which means that the generation of traffic is likewise reduced based on the calculations, but that there would be some additional updating of that study. But you have to understand,
I believe if we're going to update
the highway is already in F.
You don't update a study after you've decided there are no impacts. As I've said 100 times
We didn't
before,
say there were no impacts. Has anybody said there are no impacts under SECRA?
That's what you're going to do. That's
No,
what
I'm
wow,
sorry.
now you're predicting the future.
well, then that's what a negative declaration is. That's what Eric Shantz referred to.
Significant
He referred to
environmental.
issuing a
The words
negative
are,
declaration.
words are significant environmental impacts, Jeff.
I'm sorry, board members, if I may. Eric does have to review the EAF Part 1 and 2 and 3 with this board before you can make a determination, which hasn't happened yet. We are submitting an updated traffic plan for you, hopefully by the end of this week. And we have the archaeological study update. Just for your reference, we did do that further testing with 6 100-foot-long trenches on the property because of the burial ground nearby, and found nothing yesterday as a result. But the report has to be drafted and submitted to Eric as well and presented to this board as part of the SECRA review, which will be, you will be reviewing those documents to get to your ultimate declaration, whatever that may be. But you still have to review
This
it.
is an extremely large and important project. It has the potential for changing the character of the neighborhood. It's displacing ball fields, which is another subject that would be studied by the planning board where it belongs before a decision is made. On a project of this size that takes 2.5 years to build, that's going to cover 2.5 acres of land, you don't submit a traffic report on a Thursday and have this board, which is not a planning board, not set up to do a SECRA review, issue a decision within days. That is not a hard look. That is not what we're supposed to be doing under the environmental laws. What's the hurry? Let's get this thing looked at. And I understand the need for a medical facility. I want to say that again. I understand the need for a medical facility, but I believe in one principle that I've stated from the time I got on the board, and I'll be stating it until the time I'm no longer on the board. And that is, whether we like a project or we think we don't like a project, all projects, no matter how well-intentioned they are, should receive the same rigorous review. And this procedure that we're talking about, where the board is anticipating a decision on this project within a week, call it 2 weeks, is not acceptable. We gave this to the planning board, and my suggestion to the town board would be trust the process and let the planning board work. I got a letter. I asked Liz this week, I was communicating with her briefly, and I said, what's your deadline for a SECRA determination? And I believe, Liz, you told me it was September 13th, okay? That's 12 days away from now. That is not adequate review on a project of this size. I have another question I wanted to ask you, Liz. I
respectfully disagree with that.
Okay, I have some other questions.
In terms of planning department, planning boards, you have 2 members of this town board who've spent 13 years on planning boards. You have a member who spent 5 years on the zoning board. So I think we're well aware of what the process is. And for you to characterize this yet again, as rushing towards a conclusion after years of study and work by this town board is, I think, mischaracterizing what's really going on here. We have a timeline. We have a timeline that we are keeping to move this project along, because frankly, the town board supports this project. We are taking a hard look and have been taking a hard look. We've required an archaeological study. We've required that they come back and reduce to a bare minimum the size of this project, that they incorporate all of the planning characteristics that this town holds out. So, I just say you're against the project. It's that simple.
No, I'm not going to say that. I know you want me to say that, Peter, but I'm not going to say that.
Just make it simpler. It would make it simpler rather than trying to cast aspersions on the process. You don't agree with the result.
I'm not casting aspersions on the
process has been moving forward as it should, and you don't support the project. Just say it.
Jeff, are you done?
Peter, I've asked you before, Peter. I have asked you before to please refrain. Please do not restate my comments in your form of in your form of aggressive characterization.
Well, I disagree. It's aggressive. But Jeff, are you going to comment?
I want to make one point, David. Can I just make one point, and then I'll yield for. I want to get back and say more, but I'll yield.
I would like to have dinner in a good hour.
We had, this has not been a good hour. And Peter Van Scoyoc started out with a 20-minute, soliloquy before I began. It was very Shakespearean. We may have worked on committees for years. Yes. We may have appointed a committee on the ball fields. Yes. But this application came in July 17th for site plan review in front of the town board. And it doesn't answer your environmental responsibilities to just say, well, we had a committee that decided it. That's not what's required by law.
That's why we go through the EAF forms. Because we go through, we say yes or we say no, that this has the potential for a significant environmental impact.
We've got a report from 2018. We've never had a traffic report on this project.
Let me ask you this about...
I've read the traffic report from 2018, and it clearly states that there are problems that require a traffic signal. The town board was looking at the planning board was looking at a roundabout, and some of these issues on functionality should be dealt with.
So
test bone density tests and a stat lab do not require a 25,000 square foot building, even with the rooms that you need. A lot of what they're talking about doing is just ordinary preventative care. That's a good thing. I'm not critical of that. I'm just saying that a planning board should look at the functionality of this building because it's awfully darn big. Also, there are going to be cumulative impacts because the town board still has on paper a 12,000 square foot town hall that it's thinking about putting right next door. So there are cumulative impacts here. So and the traffic is a very serious issue. And this board is preparing to rush ahead, and I'm going to use the word rush and decide this case within a couple of weeks. And I don't think any private, and I believe in a medical facility of some kind, but I want to understand it. Liz, I have another question for you. Is it correct that this facility has a waiver of the obligation to operate 24/7 year-round? That's what I've been told. That the state.
I have not been told that, but I can get a confirmation.
Can you check that for me? And I have one other question. And again, this is something I think that's important. My understanding is that since it's a part of the Stony Brook Southampton Hospital facility, when you go into this urgent care facility, which I think is what it really is, they will be charging what they call a hospital facility fee. And I'd ask you to confirm that, Liz. That's what I think is going on, because that affects the affordability of care. If you're on Medicare, Medicare will handle your expenses. If you're on Medicaid, Medicaid will handle your expenses. But if you're just an ordinary middle-class person and you wander in here, and if I'm correct, and I'm asking you to confirm that.
I will find out for you, Councilman Bragman, but just if I may, this is a 911 receiving site. It's not a walk-in clinic, okay?
But your rooms are indicating that you're going to have OBGYN treatment, bone density treatment, a stat lab, an eye doctor's room. So there are a number of things that are sort of normal preventative care.
No, if my wife was pregnant and if she fell, she's going to go to a 911, and I want to have OBGYN care immediately there. You're designing a facility for all potentials right now.
And I'm just gonna reiterate. I think trying to categorize this as an urgent care facility is a complete balance.
And Liz, my question would be, can you please advise us in writing whether this facility will treat stroke, heart attack, and trauma? Will they
provide something in writing to you with regard to that treatment? Sure. But this is a 911 receiving site. And I think any associative care like the OBGYN is an effort and a goal to provide the best possible care for the health, safety, welfare of the citizens of the town of East Hampton.
I understand, but I think the reason that you need a helicopter landing pad is because you're going to be transporting the major
That's
cases.
also true. Yes, that's also
and
true.
You said it.
Not an in and of itself a hospital. This is an emergency room.
Right, right. And when you have an emergency of the type that can result in your death, the general practice is they don't stop at a limited care facility. They're going to be sending an EKG ahead to Stony Brook or Southampton, and they're going to get you to a stent lab.
I think
and a stroke is the same way.
I think
the idea is to be stabilized.
And that's not fear mongering, Sylvia. It's not fear
mongering. I'm sorry. I still.
They might. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Well, Liz can answer the question for us.
No, you're.
But I don't think we should be proceeding without a traffic study.
With the hospital and get some information from doctors.
Yeah, and I'm going to reiterate that I do not think we should be moving forward in any way until we have a traffic study and we've had a chance to give it to. Apparently, McLean can't review it for us because McLean is conflicted out. So, we need to carefully look at a traffic study, and we need to.
So we'll have that before the end of the week, Jeff. And again, there was one done in 2016. It was updated in 2018, and now it's being updated again in 2020.
It's the one in 18 I read last night. It was a comparison of the different sites. It was not strictly a traffic study of this unit, but one thing it did say
it was comparing
is
the
that it was
generated by the facility at different sites in order to rate that as part of.
I understand that. I'm
so
just
it was
saying,
a traffic study, so I think to characterize it just because it was weighing one side against the other.
Yeah, it wasn't specific to this project, and we need time to evaluate that. We are a small town.
What project was it specific to, Jeff?
I'm sorry?
What project was it specific to if it wasn't specific to this project?
It was a truncated report. It was a very short report. And one thing I want to note, and this is what I started out by saying about Eric's comment, is it said, we're more in the nature of a medical dental clinic. That's the traffic level you're talking about. That is a higher level of traffic than a hospital, okay? It's higher because when people go to hospitals, they park and they stay, but there's a higher turnover in a medical dental clinic. That's because this is largely urgent care, and it's not the big serious emergencies that really worry people.
Again, it's a 911 emergency satellite facility. It's not urgent care. We have urgent care in this town, and they can't handle the kind of cases that this facility.
Well, I think we should get a definitive statement from Liz about what's going to happen with heart attack, stroke, and trauma.
And that's 3 medical emergencies. There's a whole lot of other ones as well. And again,
but those are the ones that have significant morbidity.
You can die on your way to the hospital as it is now with an hour plus travel time.
That's why they want a helipad. And it's because they understand they don't have the capability.
They're not asking for that, Jeff. And I've been listening.
I'm not opposing that. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Okay.
You heard them say they'd like to have it. I think they should have it.
We have been talking about this facility since Larry Cantwell was the supervisor. So I've been seeing this. I'm going to be dead already by the time this facility gets built. If I have to hurry up and wait again,
this is environmental review. This is the lifeblood of East Hampton.
Yes,
it's why our town looks the way it does.
You're right.
You do a really fine job of it too, Jeff. And I appreciate you weighing in that you're concerned about the size of the building is having a major environmental impact and traffic being a major environmental impact.
And the third thing is functionality.
The
functionality. Fourth thing is the location. Fourth thing is a real impact analysis of moving the ball fields. That is something. And and cumulative impacts as well.
Yes.
Can I just-
Liz, you
sorry.
wanted to.
Board members, if I may, I just wanted to state that I know Councilman Bragman is suggesting that he feels rushed, but we did submit this application initially to the planning department back in March of 2020. So it has been reviewed by the planning department for a little bit longer than what you're suggesting. And I'm hoping that their review of the site itself as well for the proposed ER back to 2016 will ensure a sufficient secret review when you actually go through the AFs. With respect to the impact to the ball fields, that was parkland. There was an alienation of parkland there that was considered by New York State legislature, and they approved it and authorized it. There will be no impact to the environment due to the eradication of the ball fields due to the fact that they will be replaced. There's a committee formed by the town, as you know, and we have committed a certain number of funds towards that replacement. So there will be no impact to the ball fields.
You can't say that because we've had Charlie Whitmore in front of.
She just did, Jeff. I'm sorry. I'm sure I heard her say.
What
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Bragman.
What I'm saying is that yes, I understand you're going to replace the ball fields. We've had a critic of the plan stand up, and his complaint is essentially a displacement of population complaint. He's saying that assuming for the sake of discussion that we move them over to Stephen Hand's Path and near the highway, that is going to displace traffic and children and parents. Okay, that is an issue to be considered under SECRA. So I do understand that you've made arrangements to build new ones, but what I was trying to say, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be so abrupt about it, was that just saying we're going to build new ones doesn't answer that environmental issue that was raised. One other point I have to make, you may have put this in March of 2020 to the planning department, but the application for site plan came in July 17th.
Because it wasn't complete until that point, correct?
Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. I understand applications are complete. I'm not critical of that. I'm merely saying this is an extremely short time for this board to just go, we're ready to decide. And I want to see that traffic report and know what the heck's going on with a traffic light or a traffic circle. And, there are other issues I've mentioned.
All right. Can I go?
Sure. David.
I've looked at a couple of different things. When I was not a town board member, I believe it was the Dayton property that was being discussed for purchase of CPF. And at the same discussion that day came up the discussion about this freestanding emergency medical location. At that meeting, I actually spoke to the town board. Again, this is over 3 years ago, going through the planning process. And one of them was about traffic. I think we should continue to look at traffic. I look forward to seeing what Liz is going to say, bring to us. The one place I think the board should still look at or look in the traffic patterns is to see if there's a use of easements over some of the other CI properties that might allow for a release valve onto potentially a neighboring street, maybe Springs Close Highway. That might be accessible that way. It's a long shot, but it's something that can be looked at also. Next one, what I look at right now is our first responders. They're our fabric of our community. Our tax bases are going up and increasing right now because the lack of our first responders right now that are going into our ambulance and our fire corps and even our police corps, if you want to say that. You get a bus from Montauk. That's 3 hours out of that day for that first responders, 3 hours out of their work, out of their family life. And that's 3 hours for them to say, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I've listened to one of the fires recently that was over, I believe it was at LTV. On the same time, there were no more buses left in East Hampton. They put a third call out for Amagansett to get a standby. They couldn't get that for a while. It finally came through. But what I'm trying to say right now, this location here in the middle of our town will relieve a lot of our volunteers corps of the burden, the time frame of going for smaller, maybe not the large trauma you're talking about, Jeff, medical issues, then going to Southampton Hospital allows them to get back to their life. And hopefully they will hang on or other individuals will join. I know I've discussed this with my wife about joining the volunteer EMS corps, and we always are concerned about how much time it would take to our family. So I think this location is appropriate for that. As far as the design on there right now, the design should be based and predicated by the experts, the engineers, the designers that know what are needed for our community, the size of it, the history of our ambulance runs. How many calls do we have a year that are for a dog bite compared to a heart attack? They know what needs to be designed in this, and this is the size facility that's being recommended to there. And as I look in and checks off all the things that I can personally think of, I will defer to them. We talked about Sylvia mentioned a lot of things about the outside design. There's 72 parking spaces on the site plan right now, and a site plan that's been out there in many incarnations of it. We've been able to study this for a very long time. I thank you very much for adding the EV charging stations in multiple locations. I also think the outdoor spaces that you're adding there right now, from a person that's spent many a month in hospitals, to be able to walk outside as you're trying, if you're a family member of an individual that's being treated, and get a little fresh air is very important. And also to give our frontline workers that are going to be in this location an area that they can take a relaxing breath in a very nice environment. It's very well designed also. I would look into potentially solar lighting for some of your outside lighting if you can. I think that would assist the town onto its energy design needs. I'm not anticipating this, anticipating what's coming. Jeff, I've done my homework like you're done also. I can make a decision with a couple more factors coming in. I look forward to seeing those. I do know about the character of the neighborhood from sitting on the zoning board. This isn't CI, it's against municipal properties. It's backing up against other infrastructure from the Suffolk County Water Authority, large property, to the railway, which is elevated, to other medical facilities. There's great benefits to the community there. The detriment might be, yes, the larger building that we'd be putting in our area. Maybe it'll open and increase traffic. That's going to be upcoming. But also, there's great benefits to our community. And again, the design is based on the need. The community, I believe, needs this for the long term. It's been talked about ever since I was a young boy. And finally, we could be months, if not within a couple of years away. Sylvia, stay with us here, okay? I believe the location is appropriate. And with a couple more of the planning needs and information forthcoming right now, I look forward to moving this along. So those are a couple of my thoughts, and I look forward to the next board member speaking.
Can I just want to read one short statement here?
Can you just hold on, Jeff? I want to see if anybody else.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to say that, obviously, I've been working on this for 3+ years. I've talked to dozens, if not hundreds, of community members that are supportive of this project. To say, Jeff, that having ultrasound or mammography there, or that's not needed in an emergency room, life-threatening. Right now, I need to get a mammography and an ultrasound. I put it off for months because I don't want to drive to Southampton Hospital and give up half a day. How many more people are like me that would get their testing done, preventative testing done sooner if there was 10 minutes down the road? So I'm not going to judge the functionality of the building. I think that I leave that to the experts at Stony Brook and Southampton Hospital, that this is what they see as the need in our community. And I welcome the ability to be able to get preventative testing and go to the emergency room if somebody were to fall or had food poisoning or had cut themselves, rather than having to get to Southampton Hospital and I could go 10 minutes down the street and get immediate medical emergency care that is beyond the scope of an urgent care facility here in town, which already fills an important need.
I agree with everything you've said. I think, getting a bone density test is a good thing. Getting a mammography is a good thing. Getting a sonogram is a good thing. I'm merely saying that in its own words, this medical facility has stated that it is the intent of the facility to care for patients only long enough to discharge them or to arrange for transport to a hospital facility. And I think that we need some answers about the more major things that people are afraid of that I've mentioned. And I think one of the things that I mentioned also that's relevant to your comments is how they're going to be charging for those things, because typically a hospital facility fee makes those tests very expensive, and other freestanding locations that offer them, like in Riverhead, for example, are dramatically less expensive. So we could get more information on this. And I just want to say one comment about a comment that David made. And, that if I understood him correctly, it was, that we really need this and we've been discussing it for a long time. Again, I don't disagree with that. But I do think that we need a careful review by the planning board to discuss whether the size, traffic, and functionality of the building are what we really need for the size community we have. That also relates to the question I asked Liz about whether they have a waiver to not stay open 24/7 in a part of the year. So there are questions here that I think we should just be taking a little more time with and getting a better look.
They will be staying open 24/7, just so you know.
You're the architect, aren't you?
Yes, that is out of.
Well, I think we should do.
And you're the councilman.
Well, as a councilman, I'm worried about costs. I'm worried about whether it has a waiver.
That's not your job.
Jeff, can I just say that I appreciate that you have these outstanding questions that you want to ask. I'm not really sure what the relevance of the cost versus seeker review is. I'm not sure what the relevance of who will be transported on from this facility to another facility is regarding. I understand completely your concerns about the traffic and the potential environmental impact of the size of the building. But the rest of the stuff, those are questions, feel free to get the answers to those. I know a lot of the other board members have been looking at this and looking at the plans and reviewing this for weeks, months, and even years now, not just last night. So, we'll continue to press forward with the environmental review. The EAF will be discussed. We'll go through the checklist. We'll decide whether or not, as a board, there are any significant environmental impacts from this project that we feel would result in something other than a negative declaration in this CI surrounded area on a highway that's already rated, I think, F under the DOT traffic studies. So that's kind of where we are. If there are any other specific
that's not a good thing if it's rated F. That's a bad thing. Any worse. Well, it can. Yes, it
Jeff,
can.
I think you have to remember that every trip that's generated that comes here would continue through the entire town on a normal case, all the way to Southampton. So you're actually going to be reducing the travel times and the distances that vehicles travel in order to get these services. And to David's point, this is something that our emergency responders have needed for so long, because literally half their day is gone on a single call. That means they're not available to make another call until they get back. I mean, that can be 4, even 5 hours sometimes. So, that's unacceptable. And again, we're going to continue the review. We're not just turning this around in a week. It's been 4+ years that we've been working on this.
It's July 17th, Peter. Come on.
Yeah, we make these, Jeff, we make these progressive steps. And yeah, you could say we're going to make this determination in a week. Yeah, a week after 4 years, it's cumulative. It's not
the application came in July.
Yeah. So,
paperwork came in this morning.
But I appreciate your comments.
I'm a bit concerned, Jeff, that I don't know who you're consulting with, because you're saying things like that you were told that they could get a waiver. Who told you that they could get a waiver? You're talking about that you're the pricing is of concern to you as well. These are all red herrings.
They're not red herrings. I'll put the questions to Liz. She can answer.
These are red herrings that you're throwing in that have nothing to do with the secret review. Again, putting questions in people's minds. And again, I'll say it as it's fear, it's making people afraid, you know, and I do appreciate, Jeff, your righteous indignation on a lot of issues. And we can talk about community character. This is not a mini mall that we're talking about. This is not a retail space. This is not a restaurant going in. This is a healthcare facility, which will be, you know, hopefully save a lot of people and a lot of people's lives. So
I just think we need to understand its functionality. That's all. And you're asking me about fear-mongering. It's called homework, Sylvia. It's called homework.
I understand that. But, you know, to throw in the red herrings that you've thrown in about heart disease and strokes and that, you know,
that's not a red herring. That's a serious concern. That's a serious concern.
And I really don't appreciate you going to this. So
well, maybe you'll feel better when I get some answers from Liz. You know,
well, I'll feel better. I'm going to feel better when this facility gets built.
Well, I'd like to understand what it's going to do before we build it.
I think,
and you're free to follow up on your questions.
I will.
You're beyond that capability of understanding what this is for.
So, are there any other questions for David or Liz Hale?
Yeah, the only other
specifics of this project.
I thought the look of it. I thought the look of it. I know Sylvia said it looked like a potato barn, but it's actually very reminiscent of our CDCH building, which I believe was designed to be very open space and allowed interior space to be modularly. Then, so I think the design of it is within keeping the character, but also keeping within a budget then too. Hopefully we'll keep costs down also. So that's just one other thought I didn't mention earlier.
Can I just say I was pleasantly surprised because the architect is here. I want to say I was pleasantly surprised by the design. I like the design.
Yeah, I've had other architects, you know.
Congratulations, David.
You heard it here first.
Sounds like we have a unanimous support of the design, the aesthetic that you've created there. And we, as I said earlier, we do appreciate the time that you took to really consider the town's vernacular, to use native species in your plantings, to take into account for how you deal with runoff with the rain gardens, the passive and active solar by siting the building the way you did, the letting in of natural light. All of those things really support and reinforce our aesthetic and our goals in planning. So I appreciate that you're working towards that. As Sylvia said, if you can additionally consider solar LED lighting in the parking lot as maybe an option as well, so that we can continue to reduce our carbon footprint wherever we can.
Sure. Can I just ask one quick question of the architect? You mentioned that you were using a product on the exterior of the building because you couldn't use wood. Is that because wood poses too many problems of mold or deterioration?
Flammability, flame spread.
Oh, flammability. Okay.
And also maintenance. Wood, if you look around, the Hamptons, a lot of the old wood buildings start to look pretty tattered and require a lot of maintenance over time. And
okay, but it's primarily flammability. Okay.
You save it to trees too.
Thank you.
Well, I guess at this point, we look forward to the further information that we will be receiving regarding the updated traffic study, the formal archaeological report, and we will do a review of the EAF forms to make a secret declaration. So I thank you both for joining us. We've had a very lively discussion, and I think that's helpful.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, board members.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
David.
So our next topic is communications campaign. Councilwoman Kathy Burke-Gonzalez and Sylvia Overby will be giving us an update on our efforts to better communicate with the general public in this time of COVID.
All right, I'm going to start it off. I just want to thank the Business Recovery Group. It was at their suggestion and urging that the town hire a communication firm, which they felt was necessary, particularly this summer and what has been deemed, the summer like no other. I know the supervisor has said that many times. And, the committee continues to work. It is still meeting on Wednesdays every week. And we will do this as we get through some of these challenging times. I want to thank the committee members who have been working on this. And so that the public, we've read them out before and they were put in by resolution, but just to, again, thank them for the time and work and effort they put in to being on this recovery group. It's Leo Daunt, Ed Reale, Len Sosha, Mark Smith, Michael Cinque, Paul Monti, Rick Lawler, Becky Molinari, Roy Daleen, Steve Hawili, Tom Herman, Zachary Crawford, Thomas Flight, and for our health information, we've used Robert Ross and Bruce Polsky. And Peter Van Scoyoc has also been at every meeting along with Joanne Pilgrim, and thank her. She's also been very helpful as we've been moving forward with this. So I just want to thank all those members. And again, this was at their suggestion and urging, and I think we've got a really some good information that I appreciate Kathy stepping in on this section of it and doing really yeoman's task along with Gabriella. I do have to give her a shout out. She's been very helpful too. So thank you. And Kathy, thanks for the presentation today.
Okay, I'm going to share the screen. Okay, great. So we're going to go through our COVID-19 communications plan. So just, as we all know, COVID-19 has really changed the way that we carry out our daily lives, and we see that happening, for the foreseeable future. So it's imperative that the town continues to take a leading role in organizing, safety protocols and communicating with our residents, our business owners, our second homeowners, renters, visitors, the ways in which we can work together to keep everybody healthy and safe, keep our local economy and businesses open, and over the course of the summer, our beaches open. So as Sylvia said, in late June, we hired the communications firm Berlin Rosen to help us modernize our communications to ensure that those communications were relevant and timely and reach those that need to hear the message. In the past, we've been using, when COVID struck, I have to say the supervisor's office and Joanne Pilgrim was tremendous on posting on our website. And we know from the traffic that we've looked at on the website, tens of thousands of people go there each month to get information. Peter's office, Ann Bell, was really helpful with our Instagram and Facebook, and then Anne left us to have a beautiful baby. And we really needed expertise in order to, as I said, modernize our communications and get the word out about, our safety protocols. So our overarching message, and this was also, came from the business recovery team. They had also recognized this as well, is that we want to let folks know that we're committed to the safety, and health of our residents and visitors. And we're working with leaders and business owners in the community to ensure that people understand our protocols and guidelines that need to be followed now during this global health crisis. And our target audiences are our year-round residents, our local business owners, our second homeowners, renters, because what we've seen with the rental market out here, when folks, the mass exodus from New York and the metro area. Our visitors, we're still getting folks coming out to spend weekends and weeks, or day trippers. So we want to make sure they're aware of our safety messaging and regulations. We already had folks that were following our social media channels like Facebook and Instagram pre-COVID, and also, our audience is our local press, the East End TV, print, radio, and online outlets. So phase one started July 1st. We stepped up our communications using Facebook and Instagram, and we launched Twitter, and in conjunction with the town website, because that's our mainstay. What we were using the social media posts and press releases for were to just talk to our community about individual safety, share with them the New York State, whether it was the phased reopening or the New York State Forward, all the COVID guidance and protocols. And as we all know, because we're living it, those can change daily. Should also mention that also the SLA information as that became available. We use these platforms for town news to communicate beach safety, when our beaches were open, about the 10-foot distancing, what beaches were guarded, things like that, promoted safe outdoor recreational activities, and that also came with the phased reopening, safe dining and shopping, and also, reiterating, shop and dine local. Community events, human interest stories, and then protection and preservation of our natural environment. We've had an opportunity here to showcase some of the renewable energy projects that we've been working on. So now we're into phase 2, right? So July and August was phase 1. Phase 2 starts September 1st, and we're going to be launching a community-wide campaign that will continuously and consistently educate, our community about how they can contribute to making our town a safe and healthy place for all. As the supervisor opened up the meeting, we've had 234 total cases of COVID. Folks came here to escape the city and high levels of COVID back in March and April. It looks like many folks are going to remain once school starts. And we just, for some, this is the school year starts. It's almost like it's the start of a new year, and we want to continually reinforce our message. So our tactical plan. So what we're looking to do is to continue to promote on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I'd just like to remind the board, if you're on any of those, platforms, I hope you're following us, and to the community at large. Please look for the town's accounts. A lot of useful information out there. Branded signs. So now we're going to be, and I want to thank Councilman Lease and Parks and Recreation and the sign shops and everything for getting those signs up immediately right after we learned that, we needed to wear face coverings and stay 6 feet apart. Those signs, although they were utilitarian, they did the job, right? Because we did have a low incidence of COVID here, and people, noticed them. But now we're looking to do branded signs, and we'll be replacing, beginning this week, the signs that you've seen around town. We're also going to be using local newspapers to reinforce, eventually radio stations. As Sylvia mentioned a while back, we have time on WLNG that we've committed to. So we're going to be doing radio spots there, reminding readers and listeners to do their part. And we're now introducing direct mail on topical matter mailers to residents with specific calls to action. And what we're going to be launching that with is a postcard for the 2020 census, which I can get more into in my liaison report. So the proposed campaign is really to unite the town around one promise that communicates, the reasons why we should take responsibility for practicing those public health and safety protocols. So the campaign is for the health of our community, and the call to action is wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. But the beauty of this line is that we can have different calls to action, as is be responsible, do your part, show respect, and you'll see that play out in social media and our advertising and postcards. The other beauty of this campaign is that we can tie it into smaller constituencies. So for the health of our seniors, or for the health of our children, our small business owners, our school community. So there's a lot of flexibility. This campaign has a lot of legs as we move forward. So here's the visual treatment. For the health of our community, wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart. And here's how it plays out in sample executions. So this is just a mock-up of how the sign would look. We're replaced over one of the signs that are there now. And also gives the town's website and lets folks know that we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll also be using it in social media. This is a prototype for a Instagram post for the health of our small business owners. Do your part. And do your part could be, social distancing, wearing a mask, and supporting our local businesses. And I should say that if you've been following our social media, you will see that almost every post ties to, a safety, protocol, because that's really what we're looking to drive home with community members. And then this is just a draft, it's not a final, of the postcard for this census. As everyone's aware, because COVID struck and so many of our residents get their mail delivered to the post office, they never received a mailing from the US Census with their key code in order to go online and fill out the census. So our numbers are very low. New York State is at 60%. The United States response rate is about 64%. And right now we're at 30%. And in some communities, we're in the teens as far as the response rate is concerned. So we decided, it was a last minute decision due to the fact that, I should step back. So back in June, we talked about doing a letter, and we were going to do it bilingual, English on one side, Spanish on the other, and mail it out to everyone to remind them of the importance of the census. Then we got word that the census was going to be sending out their own letter. So we decided not to go with that initiative. And I learned about 10 days ago that that letter never came to fruition. No one I know has received that letter. I had a long talk with Tom McMorrow. As everyone knows, he's intimately involved in the census, worked there 10 years ago. And so this was something that we could respond to quickly. And it lends itself to our new campaign for the health of our community. Do your part, respond to the census. So that's going to be mailing shortly. So the next steps for our COVID-19 communications plan, signs are going up throughout the town this week. I believe there are somewhere between 10 and 12 signs. We're going to be also running newspaper ads with the same message. Census postcards, fingers crossed, will go out Monday, September 14th. And then we will do a newspaper version of the census postcard and run those in the local papers, because the cutoff date to get everyone counted is September 30th. And then longer term, we're looking to integrate radio, additional signage, and expand our social media campaign, which we are just starting to weigh into. Back in April, May, we were boosting some of our social media posts, and then that stopped, and we have just currently started doing that again. Right now, we're boosting a post on what to do if you're caught in a riptide. We're also looking at boosting the census and hurricane preparedness, just with what we decided on the call the other day. I think that this has been a tremendous effort. It's been a group effort working on this project. I think that our body of work that so far that is out there for our community to get information has been helpful, and it's also focused us. Just so I don't know if other board members know, but Sylvia, myself, Joanne Pilgrim, and Gabriella, we get on the call once a week with Berlin Rosen, go over where we are with the campaign, what kind of posts we want to do for the week ahead. And then we follow that up with another call with just, the four of us in-house. And it has really focused us on, what we need to communicate to our community in real time. And I know that there was some criticism in the past about the fact that we brought on a communications firm, but I believe that, as an old boss of mine used to say, the juice was worth the squeeze. I think we're really getting a lot of information out there in real time. I think the community is appreciative of it. I know I'm going to be mentioning in my spring CAC report that I've even had comments from CAC members, like, could you also include in the social media bike safety, road safety? I mean, so community members are aware, for those of them that are following us, and we're always obviously looking to expand our reach here, because it is valuable information that we're getting out. And, you know, in real time, for instance, we post about, you know, the travel advisory, and we all know how quickly that has changed. And, you know, SLA guidelines, which I mentioned earlier, and, you know, beach safety, educating the community on riptides and what the different flag conditions mean. And, you know, and I hope that, you know, we will continue to, you know, to do that, you know, throughout the rest of the year. So if anybody has any questions about what we're presenting or proposing, I'd love to hear them.
You know, I just want to add that we've, you know, also been working with the hospital on testing sites, making sure that everyone's aware of where the testing sites are. Some of them have changed. We've just got a new post up that is talking about, I think this is the last day for testing in Montauk, and it's now going to open up on Thursday at the high school. And the same phone numbers apply, the same time and days apply as what was in Montauk. But those will all be posted so people can be aware and can see what's going on. Again, this is about health and safety issues related to COVID, but also related to living within this community and the challenges that we face under a global pandemic. So again, thank you to Kathy. She's really done a stellar job in working with this communications campaign.
Yeah, and I guess I should, if I haven't mentioned it already, you know, what we decided is working with Berlin Rosen, we're really focused on, like I said, the signage, the postcards, the newspaper, and the social media. What we learned is that we do the PR, the press releases better in-house with, you know, Peter's office, with Peter and Joanne, because things do change so quickly, and nobody knows, you know, this more intimately than, you know, those of us that are on the ground, you know, in town hall. That the way it shook out was that we kept PR, you know, in-house, and the social media and the rest of it, you know, we work in partnership with our communications firm.
Kathy, if I could just say, first of all, I want to thank you and Sylvia for all your really hard work and the terrific job you've done on this. The first 4 months of the pandemic, you know, the communications really came through the supervisor's office. And as you said, Joanne Pilgrim and Ann Bell were really instrumental in helping me get that information out. And again, the guidance was changing hourly, you know, and sometimes minute to minute, and with really important things that we need to communicate with the public. And that continues. But to be able to broaden the bandwidth and to increase the resources on this effort, and really, you know, have a much more professional outreach to the public. And again, I think, you know, the signage that you mentioned, sure, it was very utilitarian. We turned that around in something like 24 hours to get the signs out in town once the guidance came out. We thought that was extremely important to get the word out. But frankly, you know, they're not that attractive. They get the message across. They're not that attractive. And so I think it'll be nice to have a more beautiful and maybe a little bit more better communicating sign in this whole effort to have this for the health of the community, for you know, the various different aspects that we can highlight. And again, you know, you mentioned rip currents is something we put out. These are kind of informative things that are really important. We have today, we have a rip current warning due to some larger surf. The fact that we're extending our lifeguarding hours this year because school will not be in session as early. All of these kind of things that happen really very quickly, to have the broadest outreach in the community is really important, I think, just to let folks know. And I think we're going to be in this situation where there's going to be changing guidance and really important information that we need to push out And frankly, it relieves some of the burden on my office. And it also becomes a much more professional, kind of presentation as well, and more effective as a result, hopefully. So I appreciate, again, all your efforts on that. I know you both worked very hard, Sylvia, with the Business Recovery Committee as well, which was sort of the genesis of this idea. And Kathy, I know you've spent a lot of time working with Joanne and Sylvia and Berlin Rosen. So I want to thank you for this effort.
I just want to add a comment about the signs myself, because I know our original signs were, well-intentioned, and I guess they handled the issue for the time that they were up. But I'm really pleased to see new signage that is much more welcoming, inviting, and sort of, I think, tells the public what the real issue is, that it's a community caring about itself. So I'm very happy to see it. I know it took us a while to get here, but it'll be a big change. I'll much as I got used to the signs, I'll be happy to see these new ones.
Agreed.
Thanks, Jeff.
For myself, I was looking through my emails here because getting the signs up, the initial ones, we did that on the first emails went out on the 13th of April. And on the 13th of April, I think we were all just trying to figure out how's this going to affect my life, my own health, my family's. And the signs went up, and they're draconian. I do have to give a lot of credit to Tony Lippman and the painter, Building Grounds and the painters there for getting them up in locations, to Steve Lynch and the sign shop. But this maybe shows that we have turned a little bit of a corner in this fight, but we're not complete yet. And also what happens with signage is people start glazing over if it's up too long. This is attractive to the eye, and again, it reinstills what we have to do as a community and as a world right now. So thank you, and I appreciate this, and it's something that I completely support.
Great.
Any other comments or questions? In that case, we'll move on now to our final topic of today's work session, which is the Amagansett Municipal Parking Lot regulations, parking regulations. So, Dave, did you have a presentation you were going to share with us?
I do. Let me just grab it off my computer here and I'll screen share it. Again, primarily, this is the discussion about the Amagansett Municipal Parking Lot, which we've talked multiple times. It's undergoing a very large capital expansion and revisioning, if we want to say, of that parking lot. We've had many of the stakeholders in the area giving comments to the board, myself and others. Those being from the Amagansett Citizens Advisory Committee to the library board, also many property owners that live on the parking lot, and then just individuals that use the parking lot on a daily basis. So what I wanted to try to do is get to, the board's decisions on what specific language we might have to go to public hearing for to change based on timing, and then also a design for when we complete the lot, which is going to be upcoming in the next couple of weeks, to actually do the painting of the striping. Again, it's just paint. We can do it again, but I would like to do it once appropriately, and it just saves money overall then too. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to screen share. I'll give you a little bit of update, but if no one's been back, there were some photos, and we'll move on into the real meat of everything. So I'm just bringing this forward here. Again, it's the Amagansett municipal parking lot. We see the area that's in this screen. Let me actually just play this, everyone. I apologize. Our next one is our second location. This is the area that was purchased 5 years back for the town for the expansion of the new municipal parking lot, the parking field. Again, you'll see how construction has moved forward. You'll see now on the left to the right where it's called a lift, a pavement to get the pavement up higher before the finished grade of the pavement. You'll see there, honestly, what I see first of all is I see the lovely silo in the barn there that is being wonderfully restored by the field property. It's what I stare at out there all the time. But in front of it, you might see the The solar lighting that we're using is the first ever use of solar lights on for the town of East Hampton. They've been used in other locations.
Sorry, David, there was one other light. It was in Montauk, right at the top of Hither Hills.
Very, very true. Not there anymore. Yeah,
it's
good
not
point.
there anymore.
Not there anymore. I felt about that one. Anyway, so it's the most used solar lighting we've had in a municipal parking lot, and I think it's at nighttime it's very low. It washes the field, no light trespass, and I think it was tastefully done. The downward bells are dark sky compliant and also match type of lighting that we have on Three Mile Harbor, the head of the harbor docks, and also on North Main Street. Again, it's going to be ADA accessible. And we also decided to deal with the Amagansett, the alleyway that got ADA, the trees were removed, ADA compliance, and we're going to look at beautifying that in the upcoming weeks and months. Also, I would like to look at those lights next too, because we've had some issues with them. This is what the layout of the parking lot is going to be looking like in its final layout. There will be a total of 10 handicap, the final one's going to have 10 handicap parking spaces. The spaces in the old field with the redesign, which is the larger field to the left, is 131. The spaces of the newly built parking field, which is the gray area in the top right, is 44. The total spaces would be 185. I broke that down into what our current parking restrictions are there. Currently under Schedule 18 of the Town Code 24068, we added 30-minute parking for green line stripes for 10 spots on the southern aspect of the parking field. There's also white parking spaces, parking lines, which are 2 hours only. They're painted white on all those spaces. And then lastly, yellow line spaces are currently for 24 hours, except for no parking on the first Monday of each month from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And that's a trigger for abandoned parking cars, which has happened there over the years. Moving forward, the Amagansett CAC, their recommendations, which I believe I have a strong feeling of them. We didn't get a letter from them, but this is what it was. It was 30 minutes for parking for all spots in the southerly row. That'd be excluding the handicap. 2-hour parking in the main lot from 9 to 5. On May 15th, including 8 handicap spots, including EV charging spots. 72-hour parking in the new lot, resident sticker, and a 24-hour parking placards for the apartments that are on the parking lot and don't have off-street parking, and no commercial parking. I broke it down again. Yes, I broke it down. My first little chart here, which Councilwoman Burke Gonzalez asked some good questions. 30 minutes. Currently, there's 10. ACAC recommendations were 13. 2-hour parking was 63. The advisory group's recommendations was 119. That would include 6 EV electric vehicle charging spots. 24-hour parking. Currently, there's 70. There'd be 0 in their recommendations, which also include the EV spots. 72 hours. There was 0 previously. That's a new classification. There will be 44. The 72 hours would be an entirely new parking restriction. In the handicap parking spots is that there's currently 8. ACAC's recommendation was also for 8, but the new formulation design would have 10. I'm going to move forward to our next slide here. And this is what I just drafted on here based on our last board discussion, if it helps everyone. I think the board was discussing different ways that they've seen the parking lot being used for user groups, businesses, individuals there, and the board, I got the sense the board wanted to bring back the 24-hour parking and decrease some of the 72-hour parking spaces. This is, again, just something I put together, and we'll discuss it. The green spots on the bottom are for 30-minute parking, where there's 13 spaces. The black lines, which are going to be the white line spaces, for 2 hours. That's mostly only in the main parking area. You see in the middle here, that'll be 109 spaces. The yellow spaces would be for 24-hour parking, which would be 45 spaces, which would encapsulate portions of the new parking field and the old parking field. The red spaces on the right and the one for handicap parking would be 72 hours spaces. The the lavender in the top left, again, those are just signifying the EV charging spaces that would be part of the white 2-hour parking spaces. The blue areas were for handicapped. I've spoken to our engineer about the need for handicapped spaces and timing, and then also for our Tom Rule, who assists us with our ADA regulations.
Mm-hmm.
They say that we should continue to have what we went through ADA one time 72-hour parking spot in that lot, and then also continue keeping all the other ones at a 2-hour parking as close to Main Street as possible. So that would be those recommendations. I'm going to come back to this after I'm just done with my presentation, if that's okay.
David, that was a handicap space over there, that a red handicap space for 72 hours.
For 72 hours, that's correct. The next one is just the next breakout of our last board discussion. Again, 30 minutes. We're looking for 13 2-hour parking spaces. Our last board discussion had it 109. 24-hour parking spaces, we'd be at 45. We're currently, there's 70. 72-hour parking spaces, there's currently none. We'd be looking at 11 compared to 44, which was a recommendation. The handicap, we would stay at 10 instead of dropping it down to 8 as was requested.
David, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Are there time limits? Is it, 2 hours, but that's only between the hours of 9 and 6? Or is it 2 hours any time in a 24-hour period?
It's year-round, 24-hour period. So there's no time restriction of those 2 hours. The recommendation is to do it between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., which is in other locations of our code. We do that in other areas. That would allow for greater nightly parking, but currently right now it is enforceable 24 hours a day, all year long.
How does the board feel about that? I mean, personally, I think maybe we should have set hours that it's 2 hours.
I do too, because if you want to go to dinner or you want to go to the talk house, you could be there to hear the, supervisor's band play. You could be there longer than 2 hours.
Someday.
Someday.
No.
You could be there longer than 2 hours. So or you want to have a nice leisurely dinner. 2 hours, I don't think works.
I mean, maybe just leave it until something like 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah, but not to 6.
And then no restriction beyond.
Yeah, I would bring it even closer to 5 o'clock, because that's typically sometimes when the TCOs might be in the area. And also, knowing Amagansett nightlife and restaurants, that's when individuals start gathering after the beach in Amagansett to either listen to music or go to restaurants. I think 5 o'clock is a very doable hour. That was what the recommendation was.
So 9 to 5?
9 to 5. If I could just scroll down one more. These are the areas that we would need to go to public hearing for if we wanted to change something. And again, I just put this up there for discussion. The first one would be that we would go for white line spaces for 2 hours between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. All white line spaces. That's a change of currently what we have right now that would give that time restriction there. The time parking right now, we would have to add in the 72-hour time parking restriction, which we would need. We would keep the 30-minute parking, which is already in the code. We don't need to rehear that. And then also the 24-hour parking, we wouldn't need that either. We need to rehear that. We would keep that. The third one was trailer parking prohibited. This is specifically, we did this at trailers for Ditch Plains parking area. And where I highlighted, we could put trailer parking prohibited overnight at the Amagansett Municipal Parking Lot, which there were concerns that were discussed about individuals coming there to use the loo, the bathroom, or getting lunch with a workman's trailer for that day or for deliveries. But again, this would be for overnight parking in the municipal parking lot. And then lastly, the fourth one down there below is something that we have for parking of taxi cabs and TNC vehicles prohibited at certain hours. C, we would add no taxi cab or TNC vehicle shall be parked in the public Amagansett municipal parking lot except when actively dropping off or picking up a fare. It's been very, very regular over the last year, multiple years. I've seen a lot of livery cars parking there, waiting for just taking up usable spots for commerce, but also, be honest, sleeping overnight. You see that a lot about 8 a.m., 7:30, 8 a.m. in the morning when I'm back there on times, individuals sleeping that were for rideshare vehicles. So that's for discussion. My last one is this is probably the funner of the ones we'll see, is that currently on the left, I had a discussion with a member of the AVIS. This is the current sign that the AVIS put up there. Again, it's a smaller sign, but I would recommend putting a little bit of a larger sign that's very inviting. And the reason why, so you can see the vehicles coming from the west, don't see it until they go by. The one on the right, very simply, is something that, this is actually the Thayer's hardware sign in Bridgehampton. That would say Amagansett Municipal Parking, Comfort Station, EV Charging Station. It's a little bit of a larger sign there. I will continue to work with AVIS, and then bring it to the CAC for some discussion, design on that. But I think that's something that we might want to increase the size of the sign to try to direct people back to what we just spent $750,000 on.
So
that's what I have today.
Can we just talk about the sign for a minute? Because,
yeah,
I mean, it's a nice, quaint kind of a sign, and I kind of like that, but it's completely lost. And I wonder if just going with a universal parking sign, which is just a blue square with the letter P in it and a little arrow, makes more sense to convey that there's actually parking there, because it's subliminal. People just instantly know what it means and what it's about. Just putting that up there for discussion or consideration.
Sure, and this language that's on this current sign on the right, I just quickly overlaid it on there. But again, it's just about addressing people, let them know where the EV charging station comes.
Yeah. Again, we have the signage, kind of the universal signage for that as well, with the car with the plug symbol.
Correct.
We have one of those out front, although at our entrance it may be a little bit small given the highway speeds. But
so that's the discussion. But there. What I'd like to have the discussion about the board is about the spots. I'm just going to scroll through one more. Apologize. About the time restrictions that we would like to institute in this lot, and then also the design of those timing restrictions. And I'll leave that up to the board. As members know, I'm in that parking lot for the last 2 decades, almost on a daily basis. I've seen it work a lot, how it works, how it's being used currently. I think this addition is going to be a great addition that gives individuals a longer time frame to be at 72 hours to do a quick trip up island or to another location if they need to. I think the mix of the 30 minutes, which has been requested of anyone I've talked to, it's been working out tremendously. We keep the 2-hour parking, limit it to the times of day is appropriate. I also do like the 24-hour parking on there, because some individuals go in there and do work a 10-hour shift and can't leave the area of their business to go all back and forth all the time. And I would also be supportive of the placard, specifically the placard system that would be allowed for individuals that I think there's the 10 apartments that are above properties that are congruent, yes, to the parking lot that don't have off-street parking. And that's something that we can do through the clerk's office with a long-term lease and such. But that's my opinion is enough for discussion for everyone. Thank you. Board members have questions or comments on the parking figure?
I do. I think that we've lost 24-hour or more spots, right? So we had 70 24-hour spots before, and now we're going to, when you combine 24 and 72, you're going to, I guess, I was going to say 56, but one of them is a handicap that wasn't counted. So you're going to 57. I don't think we should reduce that number. So I think that there should be a combination of 24 and 72 that are no less than 70 spots is my first thought. And it would come out of, it would come from 2 hour. I'm sorry, Jeff?
Okay. 70 spots total for 24 and 70?
Yeah, and 72. I wouldn't go less than that because that's what we have now. And I don't see a reason to reduce that or unless there is a reason that I'm missing that ACCA cap, David.
Do you have an idea for the ratio? Do you want to keep it the same or?
Yeah, I'm fine with the same ratio.
So, is this lot, I mean, basically taking up a lot of the space currently taken up with people who are going to the beach?
No, I honestly don't see that too much anymore. It's happened a little bit more this year, but in the last couple of years, you don't see that. What you see is you see a lot of people getting there early in the morning, going to some of their businesses, which might not be direct. They might be on Main Street, but not actually butting the parking lot. You see overnight parking for individuals that are living above the apartments, obviously. But there's a very good changeover of cars during the day. It was a lot worse maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But right now, based on the enforcement on there,
most of the traffic is really the shorter term parking. The demand
during the summertime, yes. Wintertime, you see more long-term parking needs.
Yeah, and again, you could have seasonal restrictions as well. You know, that's another thing that you could change if you need.
So, because
the 24 hours is more important in the winter, the off season.
I don't know.
So
I'm asking.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if we've monitored that closely that we would have. We could anecdotally probably say, but I don't know if we don't have the.
I mean, the feedback that I've gotten is that there's been demand for more short-term parking, like the 2-hour parking.
Right.
And that, so I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like 72 hours for parking is a lot of time. That's somebody who's parking and going to the jitney, I guess, right?
Yeah, for a weekend.
They're going back and forth on a regular basis.
Because what we're doing with 2-hour parking, going from 63 2-hour spots to 109 spaces, we're adding 46 spaces. It's a 73% increase, but it's at the expense of losing longer term parking. So I guess.
Was there that much demand though for 24-hour parking? Do we really need more than 45 spaces, or rather 56 total spaces where you can park 24 hours or more? That seems like a large percentage of the total, frankly. And I always felt like the biggest demand was for the shorter turnaround. So to me, it seems like a fair balance.
I think when I was the liaison at Amagansett, I recall the businesses saying that they didn't have enough parking for people that were coming to their stores. And I would increase the 2-hour number of spaces. I think that's appropriate. And so I think, the 24-hour spaces are going to be taken up by employees. Maybe that hasn't happened in the last couple of years, but when Free Ride came about, I know, that they could pick people up at the entrance to it, and people were parking there to go to the beach. And in fact, across the street, they had implemented a valet type parking. You had to, at the square, you had to show that you were going to one of those businesses. You couldn't park. I don't know if you recall, they had, folks standing there with the little stanchion, making sure that you were going to patronize those places. So I don't mind reducing the 24-hour. I do think they're going to be taken up with some employee parking, not, overnight, but maybe some people that go into the city for a doctor's appointment or whatever, they might be taken up by that. So I'm not too concerned with the way the ratio has worked out. in this. I would like to ask if you're still going to keep the first Monday of every month, that there's no parking the first Monday of every month in those spaces between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Are you still going to keep that as part of the code?
For the 2-hour parking? Oh, sorry, for the yellow. I would think so, because it's a trigger to remove abandoned vehicles.
Yeah, I like that aspect, and I know there were some problems down at the train station where cars they would literally be covered. I mean, for the entire season, the people would park their car there and then leave on the train, and it would be there. The season being the winter season, they just leave them there.
Correct.
So if it's 24-hour parking, are we enforcing the 24 hours? I mean, I don't understand why it would be necessary to have a day where you prohibit the parking. To me, it just seems like it would be confusing to someone parking there. You know, which Monday of the month is it, and what I know about that. Are you going to be able to post that where people really understand it?
Well, it's posted. It's been posted in the parking lot on the sign ever since I've been there, the last 20 years. That language, and again, it gets enforced only when someone is pretty much abandoning their car.
But I guess my question is, wouldn't that be enforceable if it was 24-hour parking? You could just come back the next day, and then 24 hours later, the car was still there. Then you do something about it.
That's correct. But at least then we know a person is using that car. Anecdotally, I'll show you pictures. There's cars back there with flat tires on them for months. There used to be. So it's something that I think is just we leave it in there because we've actually used it to remove cars, and you haven't seen that in the last 2 years now. The amount of abandoned cars.
I still think there's a shortage of 24-hour parking. 45 spaces is 45 employees. And Peter, you had mentioned that the last time we discussed this, you got a text that people from across the street, park there. And you've got the folks that park, that work on the north side of the street. Yeah. You've got.
I don't think it's fair, though, for the employees of the square to be told to go park in the municipal lot across the street when they have their own parking. They should be using the parking on their property, frankly, for their employees.
Well, yeah, but then if the employee doesn't park there, I drive through and I can't find a spot to go to Mandala, and I'm parking across the street. So I just think we're going from 70 to 45, and I think that's too big a hit. But that's my opinion.
We don't have any way of checking what the usage was on those spaces, right? We don't have any way of tracking that.
I just feel like 109 spaces for 2-hour parking, is the important number for the lot. That's, again, I've heard the most from people about more short-term parking spaces available.
I would agree with that.
The entire new lot, long-term parking. And again, reserve that back corner.
I don't know, but do we need a 73% increase on that number?
I'll be honest. People are going to be clamoring still for more parking, no matter what you do here. There's still going to be a deficit overall. So if you can find more parking in this area, they're gonna want that. I think one of the things we're going to have to look at also is for design for enforcement. The areas that we have marked out in yellow and red are known as long-term parking, but if we scatter them into the other areas, it could get a little bit lost into enforcement, or people might just think that.
So here's first of all, what was the number of the long-term lot spaces previous or currently?
24-hour is 70 spots.
Totally 70 as opposed to 56 in this plan, long-term.
Right.
Okay.
What is 56? I'm seeing there are 45 yellow spaces.
Yeah, but I'm just saying over 24 hours because anybody can use the red spaces, right?
Yeah.
For the same purpose. Are there 72-hour parking spaces now?
No.
Okay, so my point is that if you want to park more than 2 hours, you can pick any of those 56 spaces. So we've lost 14 longer term spaces under this plan, correct?
Let me see that.
Because you could
Yes.
park in the red.
Yes.
70 before, and now it's 56. So
Yes,
we've lost
14.
14. And again, I think all you need is a paint can and a paintbrush to fix this once we make it law. So if we need to adjust it, we just send buildings and grounds or highway, whatever, out there with a paint roller.
I agree with that too, Peter. It's I think the biggest thing right now we can do is try to get the public hearing on the language right now that I know to share with the board to put these time restrictions in there, get it painted. Again, still going to stay busy out here. I think we all understand that for this fall. But next season we'll keep looking at it and seeing how is it being used. Keep analyzing it. There's a lot of individuals on ACAC that are that have ownership or work in the back parking lot or use the back parking lot. I know we'll hear from them in the library. And again, if we need to tinker it as we did with the 30-minute parking, I think we come back to it. Kathy, I completely understand where you're coming from on there, and I agree that we got to watch, be careful for the, be cognizant of the employees that have longer shifts. But overall, the genesis of this is to try to get more shorter term parking in the 2 hour length. So I'm pretty comfortable with this now, and we'll keep evaluating it. That's my feeling on the law and the parking, how we've sort of looked at it right here.
Anybody else?
I'm willing to give this a shot. I liked the adjustment that we made, and I agree with Peter that, we have the flexibility to alter it from experience. So.
Yeah, we don't need to do another public hearing. All we got to do is get a paintbrush.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty of it. That's how we can fix it. So again, I think it's a good starting point. It may not be perfect, and I'm sure we're going to hear from the public. And as David said, I'm sure that if, this plan won't satisfy everybody, there's still maybe a shortage of parking for downtown Amagansett, or a shortage of some particular time period of parking. But we'll start here maybe and just adjust as necessary.
I guess so if I could just go back to the changes that we'd be looking in the code. For trailer parking, are we comfortable with no overnight trailer parking in the Amagansett municipal parking lot?
Are we allowing trailer parking during the day?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So it's just not overnight. You can do it at night, but just not overnight.
That's correct.
I'm fine with that.
Do we have a lot of trailer parking going on there now?
Yes. Yes, there's one there every night right now. And he's been warned, but again, if he's within the time constraints, he's fine, but he takes up multiple spots.
Right. How about during the day?
You just see.
Do we have trailers parking there during the day?
Yeah, no, you mostly see deliveries or people going into using the comfort station right now.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want them getting caught up on that, or if they are working on a construction project for something. But that's minimum. It's overnight where you see them more.
Well, overnight I have no problem with prohibiting it. I was just wondering if we should just prohibit trailer parking there.
I think this is a good start here with overnight right now.
We might need trailer parking for the Amagansett parade.
True.
Well, and
livestock.
use the comfort station, pick up lunch,
Yeah, restaurants, if they can pick up lunch or juice or whatever.
And then number 4 was about taxi cab parking in there unless they're actively dropping off or picking up.
I'm fine with that.
Beautiful.
Okay. And the only other one, which would be more of a policy, would be for the placard for residences that are above stores that are abutting the parking lot that don't have off-street parking to park for 24 hours.
Where do they park now? They just park in the 24-hour spaces, correct?
Yeah, 2 hours, 24 hours. Yes, exactly.
Or on the street?
They can't park on the street.
Can't park on the street.
No overnight parking on the street out there in the central business area. And again, the history of this parking lot is that most of a lot of the parking areas were owned by the property owners at one point, and that's where they used to park. But again, in '71, when the town came and bought this is sort of part of the handshake deal at that time. This is what I've been told anecdotally. But I would be supportive of that. And before we move forward, that I can get you a listing of all the specific properties on that then too. But it's something I would be supportive of. Sorry. So if you don't mind, everyone, if move forward, Peter, if you're okay, I'll put this language into scheduling a public hearing for changing these 4 additions to the parking lot for time parking, and then I will then instruct the engineer of the project when we do get to a point where we're painting and striping the lines, we'll paint them and stripe them according to the time restrictions on this diagram that's in front of us. Are we okay with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Good.
Great. I thank you very much, everyone, and on to the next one.
David, thank you so much for all your work on this, and I do appreciate that you lobbied for those solar lights and tracked them down and got them in, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I think it could be something really great.
There may be one outlying example of a solar light in town. These are far superior than that one that no longer exists, and I'm looking forward to seeing more around town. Maybe at the new hospital, emergency room.
Big project.
So we have liaison reports.
Gosh. Sure. So the Town of East Hampton's Human Services Department continues to provide assistance to seniors and other members of our community in need. If anyone needs of their assistance, they should phone 631-329-6939. So the program with delivering, 5 frozen meals has been incredibly successful. And we just hit another milestone through, yesterday, August 31st. We've delivered 30,736 meals, which is such a tribute to, how we cherish our seniors in our community, and to the Human Services Department for all of their efforts, from the folks in the nutrition program to the adult daycare program, who is also helping put the meals together, to our transportation folks. It's been, a tremendous effort. I heard from one of our seniors, Carrie Gilbert, late last week, and she asked about if there was a possibility that, seniors in the program could get town, updates. Because I'm sure all my colleagues do the same. When press releases go out, or, board meeting announcements, we've been sending them to folks on our committees. So Diane is having her staff reach out to all of the clients on their full client list, which totals over 700 seniors, to ask if they would like to receive updates. And it would be part of, the effort that I do out of my office with Gabriella, and send them, press releases and information about board meetings. So looking forward to doing that. Spring CAC had a meeting last month. One of our members, Anne-Marie McCoy, gave a presentation on the app Slack. It's a channel-based messaging platform that can help people work more effectively. They thought it would be good to help organize conversations by subcommittee, share files and documents and whatnot. So the CAC is looking to move to that platform when they communicate with each other. They also expressed their support for Ashwa Hall, which submitted a water quality grant application for round 2. I know that's going to be coming up maybe later this month or in October, when we'll be reviewing applications. So the committee supports their application, and they also supported the concept and the potential for the leaf blower legislation. We also discussed the tree that needed to come down in front of the Springs Library, which I guess was done last Thursday. It did change the landscape, but there's just more sun to go around over there now that this tree was diseased and needed to come down. They also talked a bit about the parking issues in the Springs Historic District. And as I mentioned earlier, the number of people that are just sharing the road with automobiles. And, it's can be dangerous at times, particularly on some of the back roads here in Springs, like 3 Mile Harbor and Old Stone Highway. And just wanted to remind people, drive slowly and mindfully. And if you're riding a bike, wear a helmet. We also talked last month that we had just received the gyms and fitness guidelines that were released by the state. And I just wanted to give a YMCA update. A week ago Monday, supervisor had forwarded a letter to the YMCA regarding their ability to open, that they needed to, read and affirm the state guidelines, and that they would operate according to them. Christina Butcher, who was the interim executive director, responded that by all means they would be. Last Thursday, the YMCA received their inspection by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, and they received the good to go, which was welcome news. There was also some questions because the East Hampton Rec Center is a week behind some of the other Ys further west which were opening today. Our Y isn't going to open until the Tuesday after Labor Day, but that's because a number of our employees are not able to come back, so they needed to hire and rehire staff, train them with the COVID, protocol, which can take 2 to 3 days, depending on the department that they're in. And since the Y is closed on Sundays across Long Island, and they had made the decision to close Labor Day as well, it just made more sense rather than open for a day this week and then have to be closed for a couple of days and then reopen, that our reopening would be on Tuesday. And as 33% occupancy, wearing masks at all times, all the guidelines and signage will be in place. In other news with the Y, an email came out last night from Ann Brigas, who's the president of the Y, to say that we've got a new executive director. As I mentioned, Christina Butcher was the interim. And so she announced the appointment of Stephen Lee. He's got 25 years of business, administrative, and healthy living experience, and he's going to be taking up the helm starting August 31st. So we just wanted to welcome Stephen and just thank Christina for the incredible energy and excitement that she brought to the Y. And then lastly, the census. I mentioned most of it in the presentation on the COVID-19 communications plan, but we've read in the paper. In fact, I got a newsletter from Assemblyman Fred Thiel last night. There's still time to respond to the census, but that window's closing. It's September 30th, the cutoff date. We're going to be doing a postcard mailing in English and in Spanish to all members of our community, even though the numbers are the most dire as far as response rates are concerned in those communities that have post office, pickup and not mail delivery, because typically what the census would do is those that got mail delivery, we got our postcards with our key code, and we could go online and answer the census, or some of us, got the long form in the mail. Those with post office boxes never heard from the census because they typically send out, enumerators to go knocking door to door, would go to someone's home 3 times. And if they couldn't reach them on the 3rd visit, they would ask a neighbor. Because of COVID, the enumerators only started within the last couple of weeks. They're only going to make 1 visit to a home, not 3. So we felt the need to get this postcard out. So that's something that I'm hoping we'll mail on September 14th. But when I looked at the numbers overall, we have just under a 31% response rate. In 2010, we had almost a 67% response rate. So we're really off the mark there. And the areas that are the worst are those areas that have no mail delivery. And that's like in the Hither Hills region, areas of Montauk, which is at just under 17%. Amagansett and Napeak is under 19% response rate, as is Wayne-Scott. So hopefully, folks are hearing us, they're getting the message, they're going online to mycensus2020.gov to respond to the census. The postcard will have it, obviously in English and Spanish, the phone number, because there's also a number to call if you don't want to go online or if you don't have access, to a computer. So that's my report for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. David, you have a liaison report for us?
You're on mute, David. Sorry.
The Beach Advisory Group was emailing each other over this past weekend for the past 2 weeks of an update and report. Again, the weather wasn't so great on Saturday, kept the crowds down, but on Sunday it was quite beautiful and wonderful. There were a high case of rip tides out there, but all the beaches were busy. But it seems to be everything seems to be under control, if you wanted to say, compared to July 4th weekend when it was a complete onslaught of individuals out here going to the beach. Lifeguarded beaches right now, I know we mentioned, as the supervisor mentioned 2 weeks ago, we are going to be extending lifeguarded hours at the 4 ocean beaches right now, those being Atlantic Avenue, Indian Wells, Nix Beach East, and Ditch Plains, all the way through Labor Day week, which is next week, because of the delayed openings of school. That is going to be for public safety. We want to make sure that 2 things upcoming. Our group is going to meet September after Labor Day right now and go over all the lessons learned from COVID, and we'll come back to the town board with recommendations that we found out as we move forward into 2021, and so we can get in front of this. But one of them is, again, just the amount of use that the beaches are getting at nighttime right now is quite tremendous. Anything from garbage to the need for more enforcement on the beaches. So that's something we might want to look into our budgeting aspect upcoming. But mostly, I wanted to make sure, and this is something that maybe Kathy and Sylvia can assist me with getting out the word about the code for beach fires. Because as some of the Marine Patrol are on to the waters right now, on the beaches, and discussing how people put out beach fires, you just can't bury them in the sand. So if you give me a moment just to pull it up, I would like just to read it out loud, and then maybe we can help message it out. The beach fire regulations for 141.19, beach fires shall not be started or maintained less than 50 feet from any beach grass, vegetation, tent, fence, building, or permanent structure, or within 100 feet of a lifeguard stand. There should be enough beach to comply with the 50-foot setback. The location of the beach fire may be reduced to 25 feet from any beach grass, vegetation, tent, fence, building, or permanent structure, but in no instance may a beach fire be located less than 25 feet from the beach grass line. Beach fires shall only burn whole natural wood, no chemical treated wood or painted wood. Metal, glass, plastic should not be placed in the beach fires. No beach fire shall be left unattended. A fire marshal, Marine Patrol officer, other divisions of code enforcement may require that a beach fire be extinguished based on wind, atmospheric conditions, or a fire hazard. And you can't have a beach fire over 20 miles per hour. And a 2-gallon bucket of water must be kept at least 10 feet from the beach fire at all times. No beach fire shall be set, started, or kindled or maintained prior to 5 p.m. and must be fully extinguished prior to midnight. And a beach fire must be extinguished fully and completely extinguished with water. No burning, smoldering, smoking, or hot embers or debris shall be left on the beach. No beach fire shall be buried or extinguished in the sand. All fire debris must be removed and disposed of properly, and the site be left at its natural condition. Again, last one, all beach fires must be fully contained within a metal container. I think these are rules we've got to continue getting out here now.
Yeah.
As the winter goes up, the fall goes on, early next year, just keep messaging it. I would like to message this more also to a lot of the hotel owners, as their clientele might be going onto the beach then too. Embers, 2 things, multiple things. Embers can get on and burn a structure down. Ember or a fire can really scald the bottom of someone's feet. And honestly, it really is just disgusting on the beach when there's fires left. So please, let's continue to understand that the beaches are all of ours right now, but we have to maintain them within the rules. So if the board helps me just get this, I'll send this around to all the board members. Maybe we can mention it at our CACs also.
Yeah, and David, we posted on August 15th, looking to safely enjoy one of our East Hampton Town beaches after dark. Before you light that first match, you should know that all beach fires must be in a metal container at least 50 feet from beach grass with a 2-gallon bucket of water within 10 feet of the fire, and all fire debris must be removed from the beach and disposed of properly. Then visit the link for a full list of beach fire regulations. So what we could do, we can sponsor that for the next 2 weeks, and it's $225. There's money in the budget to do that. We did a resolution back in April for that, and we can get that out on Instagram and Facebook so that more people can see it.
That'd be great. It's one of the largest concerns that the group is seeing right now.
Okay.
If we continue doing that, it'd be excellent. And again, I think, again, we'll probably start outreaching to some of these hotels also then too, because just the amount of use in the evening times on the beach, I maybe didn't anticipate it back in May, but we're definitely seeing it now in July, August, and probably September. Thank you for that.
And I think I would support that, and pushing it out as a sponsored post would be helpful too. And one additional safety tip is, just because that fire is in a metal container doesn't mean that the only hazard is from the metal container or the fire. When that container gets moved, the sand underneath is extremely hot, and you need to be really careful. Even after you've extinguished the fire in that container, the sand below can very badly burn you if you were to step on it or someone else to step on it. You need to pour cold water on that area where you had the fire as well, cool that sand down.
Thank you. With Parks and Recreation, we normally have a fall contingent of activities, recreation and programming. John Moody and myself are going to be reviewing some of these programming proposals, and we'll bring that to the town board for a discussion shortly, what we're recommending and what we are not recommending, just as we did early in the summer season for what we did for our summer recreational programs too. So I'll pass it around to the board, and we'll have an open discussion on that shortly then too, so parents and children will know what we're to be anticipated. Moving next into the first day of September, next week is school. I've got multiple kids, as we know, but you're going to see school buses out there. You're going to see kids walking to school, biking to school. You're going to see more kids going to school out here. So let's just all be aware to take some extra time as we drive around right now. Help your children. It's a different school year, unlike any other right now. Help your spouse also. Help your grandparents. Because they're going to be needed. Everyone's going to be needed for this community, and help the teachers too. Lastly, if I'm going to screen share just one more thing, I know I've done this last couple of weeks. There's a gentleman that I met this morning. His name's Herb Loper. He is a retired Southampton police officer of 26 years, and he is actually just getting into genealogy. He reached out to the supervisor's office maybe about a month ago to talk about his desire to help clean the tombstones of his relatives, either in Southampton and many out here. And he says he's related to everyone out here based on his genealogy. Anyway, I just want to share this with the gentleman here, upcoming. I met him this morning. Very, very, very lovely gentleman. Again, he's in front of using just very simple techniques that we conservation techniques to clean some of these marble monuments that you're seeing. This is Abraham Loper, died in 1879. Prior to this, you couldn't even see it. And he's just taking his time. This is the Atlantic Avenue site. And again, you see some of them. This is his best one, he said, Alvin G. Bennett, died 1885. Again, you see how the white ones are marble, the ones in the black are have been weathered. I just want to say thank you to Herb Loper, not just from us, but also others in Southampton, for just, using your retirement happily. And too, he's a font of knowledge in his genealogy. And I was very happy to meet him this morning, and I thought the board would like to know that also.
Nice.
That's all I have.
Thank you, David. Sylvia?
Yeah, so I've been working with Lauren Steinberg and Natural Resources, and there'll be a resolution on for Thursday as we again use the resources of a group called ICLEI. And ICLEI will service local governments that are pursuing reductions in carbon pollution and tangible improvements in sustainability and resilience. So we've done this for, I think now 3 years. So this is our 4th year doing it, and it costs $600. I just want you to be aware when you see what that resolution is on for Thursday. The Energy Sustainability Committee is also talking about CCA legislation, and they'd like it to move forward to its 2nd public hearing. We had the seminar where over 62 people signed up. It's been on LTV now and aired 3 times and is available as a video on demand on the LTV website. Want to remind the folks that this is only enabling legislation for the town to consider CCA, which is community choice aggregation. It helps us in will eventually help us if we get this enabling legislation to look at the type of electricity we'd like to purchase, whether it's all renewable, whether it's renewable and natural gas. But we can, other communities have done it throughout the town, throughout the state. And so we would like to get this moving and hope that we can set a public hearing for September the 17th. I know we had hoped that we would do this in person, but just in the conversation that we had today, we may not get there, and it would be limited for the in-person. And I think we've had a lot of time. I think we have the support on the town board. So I would like to try to move this along on September 17th if the town board feels we can do that.
Have any comment on that?
Let's do it. Sounds like a good idea.
Obviously my spring CAC aren't going to be thrilled because they wanted to have this public hearing in person, but I tipped them off at the meeting last month that this was
okay. Well, I think again, you'll have time to talk to them. Yeah. So as I said, we've done what we can do to get the information out there, the questions answered and asked, which is what the webinar was all about, so that people could submit their questions. And so I think it's time to not let this linger. Also, the electric leaf blower legislation. I got an email today saying, please, I actually got 2 this morning saying, please, move this along as quickly as possible. And I know, John, you've been working with Lauren Steinberg and writing the legislation, so we don't have it written yet. I do think that we'll need possibly 1 or 2 work sessions to discuss the legislation as John presents it, along with Lauren Steinberg and perhaps Paul Muniz of the Energy Sustainability Committee. And I'd like to try to schedule that for the first part of October, if we can get this moving. We had also talked about talking with some landscapers, local landscapers here. And I still need a few names. I know, David, you were going to get me a couple of names of some folks that might have a small landscaping business, not talking about some of the bigger ones in town. Actually, I'm happy to know that there are some small landscaping businesses still left. So if you could get me some names and some phone numbers, I'll be happy to call. And the last thing for the Energy Sustainability Committee, there is a new New York stretch energy code, and NYSERDA will come out or do it Zoom, which either one you want to do, on how the town can facilitate this new stretch energy code, which again talks about more efficiency with new build and substantial renovations. So I was hoping that we could start getting NYSERDA out here perhaps at the end of October or maybe the first part of November, so they can talk to us about this new stretch energy code for our building code. And it's just really some updates of things that we already have. And so we need to understand them before we can implement them in our own code. And that's all that I have for today.
Thank you, Sylvia. Jeff, you have a liaison report?
Yes, I wanted to mention the Housing Authority briefly. as the board knows, and it's probably worth repeating, we're scheduling a hearing on October 1st to look at the affordable housing overlay zone change on the 2 properties on 3 Mile Harbor that would create another opportunity for affordable housing. And this involves a joint venture between the Housing Authority and Georgia Green Ventures, which is the group that worked on the Gansett Meadow project. And I wanted to talk about Wainscott a little bit. I was at the Wainscott Chapel on Friday, where they have their bell ringing ceremony that they've had throughout sort of the worst days of COVID. And they decided that since the emergency declaration and emergency adjustments are over, that it was a good time to stop. So the bell ringing is not going to go on at this point. Let's hope that the numbers don't jump back up, because it was really kind of a response to the stress and pressure on the community. But it was a very good last meeting, and there was a pretty big crowd of folks from Wainscott, including Rick Del Mastro's family. And I also wanted to talk about the Wainscott Green, because we finally managed to work through the funding and how it could be funded through CPF. Thanks to John Jolnicki, thanks to Fred Thiel, who weighed in. Peter also weighed in. I commented on it. So we had 3 lawyers looking at whether or not it could get funded from CPF. And I just got a note, you may have seen it, from Scott Wilson, who said that he felt that he had to amend the management and stewardship plan. And I immediately have called Len Bernard and John Jolnicki and talked about how we could get funding going immediately so that we don't have to wait on that, because if we had to do that, it could delay us for probably a month by the time you set up a public hearing. As you may remember, back in the beginning, we'd actually talked at one point and agreed that it would be paid out of surplus. Anyway, Len suggested that we present a budget modification on Thursday, permitting payment out of the A fund. His belief is that it might actually not come to pass because of the time it would take to do the work and then bill the town. So by the time that happens and the invoice is received, we may be able to have held this hearing that Scott thinks is possible. We did adopt the management plan with all the improvements, so it's not a surprise to anyone. And when we approve the spending of CPF funds, we could then reimburse the budget modification from CPF funds.
Yeah, I don't think we can do it that way. I think the hope that Len must have spoken about was that you identify the A fund, and then if the management and stewardship plan is amended in time, then it can be paid directly out of CPF. I don't think you could be reimbursing other town funds with CPF funds.
Well, Peter,
I wouldn't do it that way.
Well, I would hate to see this thing delayed an entire month, which this is looking like it would occasion.
It's been since April 9th of 2019.
Well, we have, I think, pretty strong support from the board to get it done.
Yes, but there is a procedure, and I think the hanging net right now is that it is in fact chargeable to the CPF fund to do the work, and I prefer that it be done that way, since it's a CPF property and not taken out of the general fund. It requires the management and stewardship plan to be amended because that wasn't identified in the plan earlier. So let's see if we can't work through this and go ahead and get the work done. Again, my goal would be to have it paid out of CPF. If for some reason that's impossible to meet the timelines, then we'll have an alternate funding source.
Okay, well, that's what Len was saying. I'll put you in touch with Len on this.
I've spoken to Len about it. I'm concerned about actually transferring money from the CPF to the general fund, because we know that's not really the right way to do things.
Well,
that's been tried before.
We can schedule for a public hearing on Thursday and hear the public hearing on the 17th. It's just 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can do it that quickly, because we have to, I mean.
It's likely to be October. But again, as you say, who knows when the work actually gets completed and the invoicing comes in. So we'll continue to push forward to try and get it done as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, that's not really an answer, but we'll continue our discussion.
Rush?
I'm sorry? I also sent around a drawing on the sign, which we previously approved. As you know, now we're honoring Rick Del Mastro in the park. I sent this around about 10 days ago. I know we're all eager to see this project finished. If it's okay, all we did was, this came from Sarah Davison, who I think, is an appropriate person to deal with on this, because the Friends of Georgia Pond are the only other entity other than the town that's being mentioned in the sign. So I can resend that to everybody, but I'd like to get Tony Littman working on it promptly. As I said, we've already designed and approved that sign. So I sent that drawing out.
Yeah, it was drawing. It wasn't really a mock-up with the font or the color or anything like that.
No.
It was just a sketch.
Yeah,
but we're just adding the words, the Rick Del Mastro.
Yeah, I didn't really, as I recall, when I looked at it, I thought it was appropriate language, but normally we do the mock-up of the actual sign.
I'll send it to Tony to get a mock-up and around. Again, I know that we're all anxious to get this done. His family was at the bell ringing, and I think it's an exceptional situation. Rick was an exceptional guy, and I'd like to try to do everything we can to expedite this.
Jeff, if you could send that to me, because I didn't receive it, but just to go on with Rick's memory, I'll be supporting a resolution for a memorial bench that the Winscott CAC is going to be donating.
Yeah.
This Thursday to go on to the walking path when built. Also.
Yeah. I spoke to the CAC about that, and I knew that they had put in an application for that. I met with LTV, the board, and there's a lot going on at LTV it's kind of surprising, really. Some of it I can't mention because of the names involved in confidentiality agreements, but they're really sort of stretching their wings a bit, and they're doing a much better job on getting in more sophisticated programming, which I do not mean to contrast with the neighborhood local programming that comes in. It's very complementary to what they're doing, but it's just impressive that they're trying to reach out and broaden their audience and broaden the type of stuff that they're doing. I can mention they've got 3 cooking shows going on now. I always love those cooking shows. I once did one, but I didn't get good reviews on the dish that I prepared. I thought it was perfectly good, and I still continue to make my vegetarian pasta, but I think it didn't meet true Italian standards. They're going to be doing a show with the Shinnecock Nation coming up in October on the appropriate topic of Native American burial grounds, which is a concern at the site for the medical facility. I don't know what the kiddie bowl is, but I'm going to tell you they're doing a kiddie bowl. Do you know what that is, Kathy? I see a smile.
Is it TTY or DDY?
I think it's, I don't know. I had it as TT, like kitty, cat.
Okay.
But nobody knows. Okay, it was supposed to be. I thought it was a takeoff on some popular culture item that I was not familiar with. They've handled the GGG debates for the village. So it's a combination of fun stuff, local stuff, and public service stuff. By the way, I've asked them if they can bump up the number of times that they are presenting their own public service announcement on the census, and they agreed to do that.
Oh, good.
And Kathy, if you could send me what you have on the beach fires, I'd like to send that on to them and ask them to do that as well. And I think that's pretty much what I have for today.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm just going to share my screen here real quick. And I don't know if you can see that.
Yes.
Photo. That is the new sign going up right out in front of my office.
Ah, great.
So the new for the health of the community sign, the old sign, wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart, is coming down, and the new one's going up. So that's moving along really quickly, obviously. We have today, because of high surf, there's a high risk of rip current. So if you're planning on going to the beach later, please don't swim outside of guarded areas. We had a tragic drowning here not very long ago, just a couple of Tuesdays ago. And again, people have to be really aware that while the ocean may look benign, at times it's really quite treacherous and dangerous if you're not well educated as to what to do in certain circumstances, particularly a rip current. If you get dragged out in a current, the worst thing you can do is try and swim directly back to land, and that's where most people get in trouble. They try to swim the shortest distance to land against the current, exhaust themselves. The best thing to do is to swim parallel to the beach until the current releases you. It's generally like a flume. It's generally caused by water flowing over sandbars and then pushing out through a cut in the sandbar. And it can be quite a current that shows up, and it might not be there most of the day, and then the tide gets to a certain stage and suddenly it appears. So you could think that you're swimming the same safe place you were, and those changing conditions can really put you at risk. So again, please swim just at the guarded areas. We've extended the guarded hours this year on the ocean because the school's not going right back to session. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Again, I'll just reiterate where we are with local testing. That local testing provided by Southampton Hospital will be moved from Montauk. Today's the last day of testing in Montauk. It will be set up at the high school, a more centralized location, due to the fact that schools are going back into session and there's a great deal more demand near the population centers. Again, if the emergency room was up and running right now, they could hold the testing right at that location, but we'll have to wait a little while for that. Right now, it will be at the high school Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that would be from 10 to 4 p.m. And that's pretty much all I have. We have a number of things to discuss in executive session, but first we have a resolution to do. I believe this is your resolution, Jeff.
Yeah, it is. It's resolution 823 of 2020, and it concerns the installation in 2019 of EV charging station at Town Hall, and 6 of them there and 4 of them at the Amagansett Village lot. And when we accepted the bid and awarded the bid, it included a subscription agreement that helped us get some rebates and helps us manage the systems. And this resolution authorizes the renewal of the master services and subscription agreement between the town and EV Connect for a renewal period of September 1, 2020 through August 31st, 2021 for a subscription fee of $350 per charging port for a total of $3,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. One more thing I just wanted to mention. Jeff made a comment about emergency declaration being lifted. In fact, emergency declaration has been extended, as have the executive orders. The unified incident command structure that we operated under, where the chief of police and emergency preparedness coordinator work directly with the supervisor through chain of command, and the reassignment of liaisons has been returned to normal. That's been lifted. As such, I'll be back at Natural Resources.
Yes, thank you, Peter. Correct. Unified Incident Command. They referred to it as the emergency, but you're correct.
Go ahead,
Can I just say, I saw that the transcript is up for the Collins Avenue stop sign public hearing, which is great. So I'm hoping once that 2 weeks, elapses, that we can have it on for a work session discussion.
Absolutely.
Great.
It's already been actually, it's been requested to put up for potentially Thursday night because it's already been on for more than 2 weeks now.
Oh, so we can close it on Thursday?
And also we're looking to close the sanitation one also too, but we're going to wait on that one. Bond counsel is writing that solution for us.
All right, great. Thanks, David.
Thank you very much. So at this point, we have a number of items to discuss in exec session, including litigation, personnel, and contracts.
So I make a motion that we go into exec session it's now 2:35.
3:15.
3:15 is great.
That we go into exec session at 3:15 for contracts, litigation, and personnel.
We have
Second.
today?
He didn't send anything around.
Okay.
Scott didn't send anything around. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. I'll send the link shortly. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone.
Everybody stay safe. Be well.
All right.
Thanks for joining us today.